A young man with dark hair looks on in surprise. A cheerful, blonde, elf-like woman waves to him from the entrance of a quaint village, enthusiastically welcoming him to their home. The story flashes back to 1 week prior, on the outskirts of the royal capital. Alfred Reindt, an S-class sorcerer in his 30s, had secluded himself at home to take it easy. Announcing her entry, Luca barges in. Alfred calmly acknowledges her presence. Luca, an S-class adventurer, expresses her frustration at finding him still idling about. Luca tells him that their comrades, Cruz and Urena, have already left to fight monsters. She calls him an old man for lazing around. She then asks about his knee. Alfred claims it just hurts a little, but Luca immediately calls his bluff. Alfred internally remarks on how sharp she is, as expected of a doctor. Alfred reflects on his injury, calling it cheap compensation for what happened. During their long journey, his hero party was on the verge of defeating the Demon King. Just as the Demon King was about to collapse, he launched a critical counterattack aimed at Alfred, who was serving as a distraction. The Demon King's final attack struck Alfred's knee, injuring him severely. Following their victory, the party was immediately celebrated as heroes. He was bestowed with a rank and medals from the royal family. He was also granted the first S-rank title in 200 years from the Adventurer Guild. Luca informed him that his knee was cursed by the Demon King and would never heal, not even with magic. Alfred winces in pain as she touches the cursed wound. Luca leaves, telling him not to overwork himself. He notices she went out of her way to deliver medicine. He smiles, thinking that's just like her. Sighing, he decides that after so many years as an adventurer, he's entitled to a short break. Suddenly, the Lord Marshal bursts in, addressing Alfred as Lord Reindt. He reveals his desire for Alfred to lead a newly formed Wizard Knight order. The Lord Marshal explains that even with the Demon King gone, villainous monsters remain, and he wants to entrust the task to Alfred. Alfred nervously acknowledges the enormous honor. Alfred gratefully but firmly tries to decline, explaining that his current state makes it difficult for him to fight. The Marshal insists that fostering the next generation is a leader's duty and asks him to train the sorcerers of the royal court instead. Alfred begins to get a bad feeling about the situation. Just then, the Grand Guildmaster appears, stating he was on his way to visit Lord Reindt. The Grand Guildmaster reveals his plan to form a new adventurers' guild in the former Demon King's territory, and he wants Alfred to be its guild leader. Alfred can only agree to a discussion, feeling trapped. Bombarded with requests from all sides, Alfred feels the situation is getting really bad. He collapses onto his bed in exhaustion. His knee throbs in pain. He realizes he can't catch a break and that his S-rank title has become a trap, deciding his health must come first. Determined to get a break, Alfred racks his brain for a good way to slack off. An idea strikes him and he gets up, resolved. He puts on his cloak, ready to leave. He decides to put the royal capital behind him. After considering it all night, he concluded that if he'd just accepted a simple guild request in the first place, he could have avoided all the fuss. At the guild, Alfred looks for a request with 3 specific conditions. It must look easy, be from a village far from the royal capital, and take a long time. He finds one and approaches the receptionist to take the request. The receptionist is shocked that he wants to take it. She points out that it is a request meant for F-rank adventurers. The request is to recruit guards for Merg village, offering room, board, and a hot spring, which Alfred deems perfect. The receptionist is flustered, saying she should consult her supervisor, but Alfred insists it's an emergency. Pleased with his decision, he finalizes the request. Though the reward is small, he doesn't mind, as he can now receive a pension without doing anything. He is determined to savor a brief village life. With that settled, he sets off. A week passes as he travels by carriage. When the carriage can go no further, he checks his compass and gets directions. He decides to continue on foot from there. He knows it will be hard on his knee, but resolves to endure by walking slowly. Walking through the forest, he feels great, thinking it's the most wonderful weather for a walk. 3 hours pass as Alfred makes his way through the dense forest. He grows frustrated, exclaiming that there is nothing around but trees. Suddenly, a sharp sound catches his attention. He stops, listening intently, and identifies the sound of a person and a beast. He realizes the situation doesn't sound trivial and decides to investigate. A girl's voice rings out, defiantly declaring that she won't be beaten easily. Alfred is taken aback by what he sees. Peeking from behind a tree, Alfred sees an elven girl bravely fending off several wolf-like creatures in a clearing. Alfred notes that she appears brave, but he can tell she's actually terrified. One of the wolves notices Alfred's presence and turns towards him. He grins, glad that he managed to draw its attention. Stepping out from the trees, Alfred tells the startled elven girl that he's got this handled, remarking that he can defeat these foes without using magic. He grabs the wolf by its jaw. With a single, powerful kick, Alfred sends the wolf flying, casually remarking on what a spineless creature it was. The elven girl thanks him profusely. Alfred asks if she is all right. She confirms that she is okay. She then introduces herself as Millet. Alfred apologizes for not asking sooner and introduces himself in return. Millet thanks him again with a bright smile. Alfred reflects that after many years as an adventurer, he has grown used to being thanked. However, he admits that hearing her words of thanks still brings joy to his ears. Alfred asks Millet why she is in such a dangerous place by herself. She explains that her little sister has a fever and is in great pain. The medicine in their village ran out, so she came to gather medicinal herbs. Seeing her desperation, Alfred decides to help, telling her that he is actually a doctor. She continues, saying everyone in the village warned her about the wolves, but she felt she had to come to heal her sister. Alfred asks if she managed to collect any herbs, but Millet sadly shakes her head. She explains that the area has been picked clean by animals, and the prevalence of wolves has kept her away. Alfred asks if her search is already hopeless. The thought of her being out here alone strikes him as horrible. He feels he can't bring himself to leave the brave girl to fend for herself. Alfred worries that if he helps her, he won't make it to the village before its gates close at sunset. However, the thought of leaving her to be devoured by monsters weighs too heavily on his conscience. He calls out to her, offering to help search for the herbs. Alfred reassures Millet that he isn't in a rush and that she'll feel more at ease with an adult around. Overjoyed, she thanks him again. He then asks her to tell him where the herbs grow. Millet happily points the way forward. She leads him through the forest, telling him there is no need to hurry. Alfred follows behind, smiling at her cheerful disposition. They walk through a part of the forest with abundant plant life. Alfred notes the lack of any herbal scent and asks Millet for the features of the plant they are looking for. She describes a green, hand-shaped ivy plant. Millet realizes with disappointment that the herbs here have also been eaten. Alfred asks if there is anywhere else they can look, and Millet suggests a cave about 30 minutes away. Alfred senses her hesitation and asks what the problem is. She reveals that a basilisk has recently settled in the cave. Alfred recalls information about the demonic beast Basilisk. It's a B-rank monster that can turn people to stone with its gaze, and its blood and tail are highly poisonous. He calmly assesses that a B-rank party should be able to hunt it down. Millet is terrified by the prospect. Alfred gives her a confident wink and tells her not to worry, boasting that he's a pro at exterminating basilisks. Millet protests that it's too dangerous, but he simply reassures her that it will be fine. They arrive at the dark entrance to the cave. At the cave's entrance, Alfred asks if the herb has a scent, which Millet confirms. He then asks her to wait outside and look after his luggage. He reassures her that it's all right and tells her to shout if anything happens, promising to come running immediately. Millet watches him go, speechless with worry. Alfred notes that the cave is quite deep. He is pleased to find the herbs growing untouched. He ventures further into the darkness. Suddenly, he senses a large presence and realizes the basilisk has shown itself. The massive serpentine form of the basilisk emerges from the darkness, its single eye glaring down at Alfred. Alfred unleashes a powerful blast of energy towards the basilisk, warning the creature to watch out. The magical attack explodes, staggering the basilisk. Holding the basket of herbs he came for, Alfred wonders if he has collected enough. He then picks up a small rock, stating that while he holds no personal grudge, he has to deal with the monster. As magical energy swirls around him, Alfred smirks confidently, telling the stunned basilisk that he is going to enjoy defeating it. He enchants a small rock with speed magic. Then he hurls it with incredible force directly at the basilisk. The magically enhanced rock strikes the basilisk's head with lethal force. The massive creature collapses, defeated. Alfred watches it fall, musing that it has been a long time since he last fought one. Alfred decides against leaving the basilisk's body to pollute the cave, wanting to preserve the area for the herbs to grow back. Outside, an elven girl sees something and excitedly calls out to a waiting Millet. Millet's friend greets Alfred as he emerges from the cave. He shows Millet the basket full of herbs and confirms she is okay. Overjoyed, Millet thanks him profusely. Alfred then announces he's going to drag the basilisk outside to butcher it and asks for their help. Millet is in absolute awe that Alfred defeated the basilisk, while he wonders if he was wrong to do so. She thinks his fate was amazing. She gushes over his power, calling him an expert at exterminating basilisks. Alfred, however, finds her praise incredibly awkward, muttering that it was just another day. Millet eagerly offers her help to butcher the creature. As she adjusts her top to get ready, she inadvertently catches Alfred's attention. When she asks what is the matter, he quickly looks away, flustered and claiming it was nothing. Standing before the enormous basilisk carcass, Alfred remarks on its size, while Millet agrees that it is a great harvest. Alfred prepares his knife to begin the work. Millet excitedly lists the valuable parts they can harvest, such as its tail, fangs, and eyeballs. The basilisk's blood is collected to be used as an ingredient for medicine. They work together, harvesting its useful hide and edible flesh, ensuring nothing is wasted. With the work complete, Alfred announces that they are more or less finished. He praises Millet for being a great help, and they high-five in celebration. As the sun begins to set, Alfred suggests they camp in the cave for the night. The suggestion seems to unnerve Millet. When Alfred asks what is the matter, she claims it is nothing. Suddenly, she clings to him in fear, startling him. Millet confesses that she is terrified of the forest at night. Alfred smiles reassuringly, telling her not to worry and promising to protect her. His chivalrous declaration makes her blush. They build a campfire to settle in for the night. Alfred has given Millet his overcoat. He asks if she will be all right, and she reassures him that she will be fine since it is a warm season. All around them, the deep darkness of the forest presses in. By the fire, Alfred offers Millet some roasted cheese, but she declines. He asks if she is sleepy, and she admits she is too restless to sleep. He apologizes, guessing she is not used to sleeping outside. Millet then asks Alfred why he was there to begin with. Alfred explains that he was heading to the village that made the request he accepted. Millet expresses concern that he might be late, but he assures her there is no time limit. Eager to help, she offers to guide him to his destination. Alfred tells her the place is called Merg village. Millet is stunned by his answer. She is then overjoyed, exclaiming that Merg village is her home. Alfred is surprised by the happy coincidence. Millet is immensely relieved, realizing that Alfred will be staying in her village for a while, making her feel her life will be more relaxing. Alfred confirms that this is how things will be. Feeling safe and content, she rests her head against his shoulder. Millet giggles contentedly while leaning on Alfred. He watches her with a gentle, amused smile. Alfred reflects that being a guard might not be so bad after all. It will be a job where he can personally protect people's smiles. He looks forward to enjoying a carefree countryside lifestyle. A flashback reveals that Alfred, the veteran sorcerer renowned for subjugating the Demon King, was struck by the king's immortal killing arrow. This event led him to fear for his life and decide to take a break from his adventuring career. Once the strongest sorcerer, Alfred grew tired of the upper class constantly bothering him. Desperate for a break, he forcefully left the royal capital, choosing a quiet life as a simple village guard. Guided by Millet, Alfred arrives at a quaint village nestled in the mountains. He thanks her for her help, remarking on what a nice place it seems to be, and Millet cheerfully assures him that he will grow used to it soon. The villagers rush out to greet Millet, relieved to see her home safely. They express their concern for her and ask about the man she is with. Millet enthusiastically introduces Alfred, declaring him her super strong and kind savior. Millet tells the villagers how Alfred watched over her all night in the forest. She excitedly proclaims that he even defeated a basilisk, calling him amazing. The villagers praise Alfred for his strength, leaving him feeling incredibly awkward. Millet then excuses herself to quickly go prepare medicine. An elderly beastman steps forward, having heard the story. The villagers recognize him as the village chief. Realizing his mistake, Alfred apologizes for not speaking first. He formally introduces himself as Alfred Reint, the new guard for Merg village. Amidst the villagers' excitement about a welcome party, the chief offers to guide Alfred to his new residence. He leads him to an old building, explaining that it also serves as the guardhouse, but Alfred assures him that it's perfectly fine. Alfred notes that while the guardhouse is old, it does have a roof. He is pleased to see it even has a bed. He asks the village chief to explain the details of his work. The chief simply sets up a chair, telling him to enjoy the sun while sitting in front of the gate. He clarifies that while Alfred's main job is to prevent invasions, the village rarely sees enemies. Alfred is puzzled, wondering if a guard is even necessary. The chief explains that Alfred would be a great help on the farms and that he should also stand guard against wolves and bandits. Acknowledging that Alfred looks like a veteran who might be disappointed, the chief seems concerned, but Alfred reassures him that it is fine. The village chief confesses that they were expecting a younger man, which is why he was surprised. Alfred realizes that they simply wanted a young man, which explains their earlier reactions. The chief elaborates on their scheme to find a husband for one of the village's women and have him move in permanently. He notes that young adventurers typically would not accept requests for a village like theirs. The chief asks why Alfred volunteered, and Alfred explains that he injured his knee in the past, prompting the chief to recommend the village's hot spring. That night, a lively welcome party is held in Alfred's honor at the village chief's house. The welcome party is a boisterous affair. After the villagers leave, wishing him well for the next day, the village falls silent. Alfred settles into his bed for the night. As he lies in bed, Alfred senses a pack of wolves approaching. He realizes it would be terrible if the village were harmed on his first day. Determined to make a good first impression and avoid being seen as incompetent, he gets dressed. He quickly heads out to confront the threat. Alfred leaps over the village fence. He rushes into the forest to intercept the wolves. He suddenly stops, a look of surprise on his face. Instead of a normal pack of wolves, Alfred finds himself face to face with a large, splendid-looking magical wolf and her pups, leaving him taken aback. Alfred admits to himself that even as a veteran, he has never encountered such a fabulous wolf before. He understands that among powerful magical beasts, there are those who can wield magic. The massive wolf unleashes a powerful roar, crackling with magical energy. The wolf's howl is imbued with magic, a force powerful enough to paralyze an average adventurer. Alfred, however, manages to stand his ground against the magical pressure. Alfred swiftly engages the wolf pack, dodging and striking with precision as the larger wolf observes the fight. The leader of the pack watches intently as Alfred fights. Alfred easily kicks away the smaller attacking wolves. He deduces that they may all be magical wolves. However, he concludes that the enormous boss is the only one who can use magic. Alfred assesses the size of the pack, estimating there are about 20 of them. He addresses the leader, recognizing that the others serve under her. Alfred determines that using fire or lightning would be too risky, and water magic would be a pain. He resolves to use another method, placing a hand on the wolf as a magical circle forms. He decides to bash them with hastened magical barriers. The wolves move with incredible speed. Alfred is shocked to see that they dodged his attack. Alfred is surprised by the wolf's swift movement. He acknowledges that her skill is impressive. He admits to himself that the challenge is making the fight rather enjoyable. The battle intensifies. Alfred lands a powerful blow on one of the smaller wolves, just as the leader charges a magical blast in her mouth. The large wolf is knocked to the ground, defeated. Alfred explains that if they do not harm Merg village, he will let them all off the hook. The magical beast appears to understand, which Alfred doesn't find unusual for a creature of its level. He exclaims that he is a sorcerer and could have used his full power to annihilate them all from the beginning. He clarifies that if he did, the wild boars would increase in number and ruin the fields, which is why he is letting them go. He adds that it would be a waste to simply kill her. A voice suddenly speaks in his mind, saying it understands. Alfred is shocked, realizing the wolf can use telepathy. The wolf admits that it is her loss. Alfred is taken aback, stating that he could not even get her to become serious. Alfred introduces himself, respecting the wolf's strength and intellect. The wolf telepathically communicates that she has no name, prompting Alfred to offer to give her one. He excitedly suggests the name Gel Gel. The wolf is clearly unimpressed with the suggestion. Alfred's next suggestion of Puffy is also met with disdain. Finally, he suggests Femme, which she accepts. The newly named Femme swears that as the alpha, her pack will not attack Merg village. To reassure the frightened villagers, Femme offers her head as a trophy. She then admits she was only kidding. As a true token, Femme breaks off one of her own fangs. She gives it to Alfred, telling him that showing it to people will let them know of his victory. Alfred accepts the fang from Femme, thanking her. He tells her he'll be staying in Merg village for a while and to call if she needs anything. As a sign of their new pact, Femme extends her paw. They share a formal handshake, which Alfred notes is a genuine gesture. The next morning, Alfred walks along a path, followed by Femme and her pack. He shields his eyes from the radiant sun. A voice calls out his name. Millet greets Alfred, expressing her relief. She had been worried when she couldn't find him to invite him for breakfast. Alfred, looking exhausted from the night's events, feels the strain on his body. The village chief greets everyone. He asks Alfred if he heard the loud wolves the previous night. The chief announces that they're preparing for a mountain hunt and invites Alfred to join. Alfred looks hesitant. He reveals that he patrolled the woods himself, which leaves the chief in utter shock that he went alone. The chief scolds Alfred for his recklessness, dismissing his specialization in wolf extermination. Alfred tries to explain that the wolf promised not to attack, but the chief scoffs at the idea of a talking wolf. Realizing they are treating him like a liar, Alfred decides to act. He presents the fang as proof. The sight of the massive fang leaves Millet and the village chief speechless and horrified. The village chief recoils in shock. Alfred wonders about their extreme reaction. The other villagers, ready for the hunt, approach and ask what is the matter. The villagers are stunned by the fang. They crowd around, demanding to know what happened. Alfred desperately tries to explain the situation, but the villagers are skeptical, with some suggesting the fang might be a fake. Suddenly, Millet embraces Alfred, calling him wonderful and like a legendary treasure, while Alfred apologizes for being doubted. The village chief, sniffing the fang, confirms its authenticity. He states it's a freshly extracted fang from the magical Wolf King. The chief explains a village legend. The magical Wolf King only gives its fang to a master it recognizes. He recounts the story of a hero from 300 years ago who fought alongside the Wolf King and received its fang, becoming its master. To prove the legend, the chief brings out the village's 300-year-old treasure, the original fang given to the hero. Alfred stares at the ancient fang. Seeing the proof, Millet realizes with joy that this means the wolves will no longer threaten their village. The villagers erupt in cheers for Alfred, their new hero. They decide to throw a party, an all-nighter, to celebrate. Amid the chaos, Alfred remembers Millet. He grabs her hand to get her attention. He apologizes for missing the breakfast she prepared, and she reassures him that it's okay. As the party winds down, Alfred asks Millet about her little sister's recovery. Millet happily reports she's doing well and invites him to visit soon. She waves goodbye. Alfred reflects on the party the next day. He admits the all-nighter was tough, but he was glad to socialize and be celebrated by the villagers. Surrounded by the happy villagers at the feast, Alfred feels a sense of belonging and is delighted to have been accepted by them. After the long celebration, Alfred finally returns to his cabin as the sun sets. Utterly exhausted, he collapses onto his bed. He falls into a deep sleep. His sleep lasts until the dead of night. In the middle of the night, Alfred is suddenly awakened by a strange presence in his room. He sits up alert, realizing he has an unexpected visitor. In a brief side story, Millet, having fully prepared breakfast, cheerfully sets off to deliver it to Alfred. However, she is shocked to discover that he is missing. A small note clarifies that Alfred did eventually enjoy the meal with great delight. As morning nears, Alfred lies in bed, fondly recalling the magical wolf from the previous day. He remembers it as a magnificent creature, big, strong, intelligent, and possessing a glorious golden fur that shimmered under the moonlight. He muses that despite all its impressive qualities, the wolf was also very fluffy. As he imagines how soft its fur would feel, he is suddenly jolted from his sleepy state. He is startled by a strange sensation, wondering what is happening. Alfred sits up in shock to find the very same magical wolf standing in his room. He blurts out, asking who it is, only to be rebuked by a telepathic voice calling his question rude. Alfred correctly guesses the wolf is the magical Wolf King, Femme, who confirms its identity. Femme then demonstrates its power by shrinking to a much smaller size, declaring it a simple feat. Alfred, impressed, admits he just wanted to touch its fluffy fur and begins petting it, much to Femme's annoyance, who tells him to stop treating it like a dog. While petting the wolf, Alfred notes how slim it is. The Wolf King then gets serious, stating it has a request. Alfred recalls his promise to help, but is surprised to be called upon the very next day. A promise is a promise, however, so he follows Femme outside. As Femme eats, it explains its request. This area was once the domain of magical wolves, but since the previous king's passing, a wild boar army has grown in influence, driving the wolves away from Merg village. Fem, the descendant of the previous king, was called back to lead the pack, but the boar boss proved too powerful. Alfred realizes this is why Fem is so thin. Fem adds that their desperation led them to attack the village, but Alfred stopped them. Alfred simply replies that he was lucky. Stating that it's a race against time, Fem formally asks Alfred to lend his strength. Alfred agrees without hesitation. He privately finds it amusing that a magical wolf king is losing to wild boars, causing Fem to become flustered. Fem insists the boars are very strong, and Alfred finds its earnestness adorable. The wolf then criticizes Alfred's poor presence-sensing abilities for not noticing its intrusion. Alfred counters that he simply didn't sense any killing intent. Deciding it's too late to act today, Alfred says they will leave in the morning. Fem quietly thanks him. Alfred comments on how surprisingly docile Fem is for a wolf king. When he gets into bed, he finds it cramped as Fem has decided to sleep with him. He asks why the boars are so strong, but Fem admits it doesn't know. Alfred recalls showing the fang Fem gave him to the villagers, who were naturally shocked. He then teasingly asks if giving him the fang meant Fem recognized him as its master. The question leaves the Wolf King flustered and confused. Fem playfully licks Alfred, who tells it to stop pretending to be a dog. As dawn breaks, Fem licks him again to wake him up. A groggy Alfred finally relents and agrees to get up. Just as Alfred is waking up, Millet arrives at his door, calling out to see if he's awake. He greets her as she approaches. She cheerfully presents the breakfast she has brought for him. Millet immediately spots Fem and gushes over how adorable it is, thinking her little sister would be thrilled to see it. She asks Alfred if he adopted the wolf. He clarifies that the small, cute creature is actually the magical Wolf King, much to her surprise. Fem introduces itself as the magical Wolf King, while Alfred, holding breakfast, worries that the talking wolf startled Millet. Millet is utterly shocked to hear the small wolf speak. Her shock quickly turns to amazement, finding the talking wolf incredible. Alfred watches Millet and Fem getting along, thinking it's fine as long as she is happy. He later informs the village chief of his intent to hunt the magical boar. The villagers enthusiastically send Alfred off, telling him to knock himself out and that they're looking forward to the boar meat. Alfred asks Fem which way they should go, and the wolf indicates the path forward. Alfred is impressed by Fem's truly enormous size when it's not magically shrunken. Alfred asks Fem about the previous magical Wolf King's battle with the hero, and Fem clarifies that was its father. Alfred realizes this means Fem is the grandchild of the famous magical Wolf King. He suddenly stumbles, and Fem asks what is wrong. Fem asks if his knee hurts, and Alfred admits something happened during a past battle with the Demon King. Fem expresses its hope that he will not slow them down. Seeing his discomfort, Fem offers to let Alfred ride on its back. Knowing it's a rare privilege, Alfred accepts the ride and climbs onto Fem's back. He is immediately astounded by Fem's incredible speed as they race through the forest. Fem announces their arrival at their destination. Alfred surveys the area and comments on what an awful wasteland it is. He voices his doubt that they will find any boars in such a place. Fem ignores his comments and asks if he is ready for what is to come. Fem lets out a powerful roar that echoes through the wasteland. Alfred complains about the loud noise, telling Fem to wait a moment. The ground begins to tremble in response to the roar. His annoyance turns to alarm as he senses a powerful presence approaching. A colossal magical boar erupts from the ground, confronting Alfred. Alfred is absolutely thrilled by how gigantic the boar is. Fem questions why he looks so happy, exclaiming that it wouldn't stand a chance against the beast. Alfred acknowledges his rule against senseless killing, but this situation may be an exception. He realizes this gigantic creature is what turned the land into a wasteland and will destroy the forest if left unchecked. The boar lets out a putrid breath, causing Alfred to gag. Alfred is overcome by the foul smell, wondering what it is. Fem explains that they are facing a decaying boar whose breath is poisonous. Alfred complains that Fem should have warned him about the poison sooner, as he feels like he is dying. Fem seems to agree excitedly, much to Alfred's exasperation. Looking at the boar, Alfred concludes that the creature cannot be left alive. Alfred decides that it should be fine to use some of his true power and prepares to attack. He unleashes a powerful blast of explosion magic at the boar. Fem asks if it's dead, and Alfred tells it not to jinx it. Alfred is relieved that he was able to defeat the boar in one hit without having to worry about the surroundings. He remembers the villagers were looking forward to boar meat and wonders if the creature is safe to eat. Fem explains that it is, pointing out that even poisonous snakes don't have flesh covered in poison. Fem introduces the other wolves as its followers, much to Alfred's surprise. Alfred observes that both Fem and the other wolves are slim, concluding they came to eat the meat. He decides to take just a small portion of the meat with him. Fem is overjoyed when Alfred tells it to have the rest of the meat. The wolves happily begin to eat their meal. Alfred looks on with a satisfied smile, glad to have fulfilled Fem's request. The villagers greet Alfred, welcoming him back. The villagers were delighted to see the meat Alfred provided. The village chief is stunned by the enormous tusk. Millet was in high spirits from the successful hunt. The village children excitedly pet one of the small wolves, exclaiming how fluffy it is. Millet invites Alfred to have dinner with them, and he enthusiastically agrees to have a grill. As they walk toward the house, Millet tells Alfred that her sister is doing great and is currently asleep. Millet calls out to her sister Colette, announcing they have a guest. A sleepy Colette wakes up and asks who the visitor is. Colette realizes with a start that the visitor must be Mr. Alfred. Millet explains that she has been telling Colette that she was saved because of Alfred's help. Colette expresses her profound gratitude, feeling she can't thank him enough. Millet tells her sister to lie down until the food is ready, reminding her that she wouldn't want to get sick again. Millet tells Colette she will call her once the food is prepared. Colette is charmed by Fem, exclaiming how cute the wolf is. She hugs the wolf, marveling at how big and fluffy it is. Colette thanks Alfred for dropping by, and he tells her he's glad to have met her. She then asks Alfred if she can borrow his ear for a moment. Colette gives Alfred a kiss on the cheek. She explains that it is her way of thanking him. Alfred is left flustered by the unexpected show of affection. Colette then asks him what he thinks of her older sister. Alfred is at a loss for words, unsure how to answer Colette's question. Colette enthusiastically tells him that her big sister Millet is amazing. She lists Millet's talents, from her delicious cooking to her skill with crafts. She reveals that after their father's death, Millet became a doctor to provide for her. Colette explains that many boys want to marry her sister, and Alfred notes that she sounds popular. She then directly asks Alfred if he likes her big sister. Colette declares that she is sure her big sister likes Alfred. She adds that Millet is especially cute when she talks to him. Alfred is taken aback by the suggestion. Colette tells Alfred that she wants him to take her big sister as his bride, but he can think it over. Just as Millet announces dinner is ready, Alfred and Colette agree to keep their talk a secret. Millet asks what they were talking about, but they brush her off. They all sit down for dinner. Alfred enjoys the meal. He compliments Millet on her cooking, and she replies that it's all thanks to him. Colette asks how big the wild boar was. She is amazed when Alfred tells her it was bigger than the house. Alfred jokes that if Millet were there, he would have recruited her as a guard. Millet remarks on the increased animal damage and her fear of the massive boar she'd never heard of before. Fem reassures her, stating that since Alfred defeated the main threat, the wolves will hunt the rest of the troublesome animals. Colette cheers for Fem while Millet reminds her to finish eating. Millet expresses her hope that they will be fine. Millet smiles, confident that Alfred will protect them. Alfred adds that Fem will be there to help as well. He confidently tells them to leave it all to them. The narration explains that the village is no longer threatened, and Alfred plans to visit the hot springs tomorrow. Alfred contemplates his plans with a thoughtful expression. Alfred yawns, beginning another peaceful day. He muses that his job as a guard is so comfortable and free of threats that even Fem is taking it easy. Lying nearby, Fem retorts that she is, in fact, awake. Alfred reflects on the gigantic magical boar that had been menacing the forest. He wonders if its immense size was the result of some kind of sorcery or curse. Lying in bed with Fem sleeping nearby, he ponders the mystery. Suddenly, Fem springs to attention, alerting Alfred that someone is approaching the village. Alfred is initially confused as he doesn't sense anything, but then he focuses. He praises her superior senses and gets up, wondering who the visitor could be. Alfred steps outside, observing that while it's strange for someone to be loitering in such a remote area at night, he doesn't sense any killing intent. Suddenly, a foot clad in a heeled boot slams down in front of him. A furious woman appears, recognizing him as Alfred. The stranger declares it unforgivable that he's forgotten her and introduces herself as Vivi, one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King army, but Alfred admits he still doesn't remember her. Alfred expresses his skepticism, pointing out that the hero party already defeated the 4 kings, but Vivi retorts that there are actually 5 of them. Alfred concludes she must be an ordinary demon who just thinks she's a heavenly king. He then casually asks why she is in the countryside, which enrages Vivi, who accuses him of playing dumb about something he did. Alfred feigns ignorance, wondering what he could have possibly done. Vivi explodes in anger, shouting at him for feigning ignorance. She reveals that he took away the boar she had brought up and raised. Pointing an accusatory finger, she declares that he is the culprit. Now it's Alfred's turn to be angry, shouting that her actions in enlarging the boar disrupted the ecosystem and troubled everyone. Vivi retorts that she couldn't care less about the human race and declares that Alfred will perish. Vivi begins a spell incantation, and Alfred notes the enormous magical power welling up within her. However, he smirks, thinking to himself that only an amateur would perform such a long chant in front of an enemy. Alfred tells her to brace herself. Before she can react, he rushes forward and strikes her, cleanly interrupting her spell. Vivi falls to the ground, stunned and confused as to why a sorcerer would know how to break a chant. Alfred grabs her, telling her it's a fundamental skill and that he's going to beat some sense into her for causing trouble. In her panic, Vivi accidentally unleashes a small, uncontrolled fireball. The stray fireball sails over their heads. The roof of Alfred's cabin catches fire, and he cries out in dismay. He prepares to use water magic to extinguish the blaze. Turning to Vivi, he warns her that she won't be getting off the hook for this. Before Alfred can act, Femme leaps forward and bites Vivi's leg, pinning her to the ground. Vivi cries out in pain from the bite. Alfred remarks with some amazement that Femme isn't holding back at all, even though the girl is crying. Vivi cries out for Femme to let her go, having clearly reflected on her actions. Alfred tells Femme that's enough. The ordeal leaves Vivi shaken and tearful. He then turns to the frightened demon and asks for her hands. A magical light appears as he binds her wrists. Alfred brings the bound Vivi into a shed, where she immediately panics, asking what he plans to do with her. She defiantly declares that even if he has his way with her body, he will never capture her heart, all while thrashing dramatically on the floor. Alfred watches her display, completely unimpressed. Vivi continues her dramatic outburst, accusing Alfred of looking at her forbidden regions. Exasperated, Alfred tells her to act normal. She laments her humiliation, thinking it unfitting for one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King army. Alfred concludes that Vivi is a total weirdo, though she seems determined not to lose. He thinks to himself what a troublesome girl she is. He tries to calm her down, insisting he has no indecent intentions, but she accuses him of trickery. Sighing, he finally gets to the point and informs her that she will be fixing his torched roof tomorrow. Having completely immobilized Vivi by rolling her up, Alfred decides to interrogate her to find out her motive. He asks why she raised the magical boar, but she refuses to tell him. She taunts him, saying he would cower in fear if he knew her plans. However, she immediately follows up by blurting out that the boar was simply practice. Vivi proudly reveals her ultimate goal is to grow a dragon, planning to use the magical boar as feed. Alfred is completely unimpressed, concluding that Vivi is an idiot for confessing so easily. He dismisses her as a disappointing child who can't control herself as she struggles in her bindings. Alfred considers her plan to raise a dragon to be a little frightening. He asks what she would do after raising it, noting it would be troublesome. He correctly guesses that she intends to rebuild the Demon King army. Vivi is stunned that he figured it out. Alfred then asks about the advanced technique she must have used to grow the boar to such an extent. Alfred sighs, remarking on the spectacular size of the magical boar. Now untied and feeling smug, Vivi compliments him, noting that for an inferior creature he has quite the eye. Alfred listens as Vivi explains her methods. She proudly states that she covered all her bases by carving the circle at the bottom of the swamp. Alfred realizes it must have been a substantial concealment technique for him not to have noticed. He concedes she might be a more superior sorceress than he initially thought, albeit an annoying one. He then stands and declares they are going to clear the magic circles tomorrow, much to Vivi's shock. Alfred adds that after clearing the circles, Vivi must restore his roof, causing her to protest. However, a menacing growl from Femme quickly changes her mind. Vivi meekly agrees, and Alfred wishes her a good night. The next morning, the villagers gather outside. They discuss the unbelievable events that transpired overnight. After hearing the story behind the boar's rampage, the villagers are terrified, but Alfred assures them everyone is now safe. They are relieved, realizing their village would have been annihilated if not for Alfred capturing the powerful demon. They hail Alfred as the village's savior, showering him with gratitude despite his attempts to downplay his role. Millet arrives on the scene with a smile. Alfred greets her warmly. Seeing an audience, Vivi proudly introduces herself as one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King army. The local children, however, are more interested in her cool horns than her title, much to her confusion. A villager asks if Vivi was really a big-shot demon, and Alfred confirms he has her under control. Millet worries if Alfred was hurt, but he tells her there's no need to worry. He explains to another villager that Vivi's 4 heavenly king title is just something she proclaimed herself. Millet says that regardless, she is grateful that he protected their village. Alfred smiles warmly and thanks Millet for her kind words. His thanks cause her to blush and become flustered. Alfred notes to himself how genuinely happy she is when he thanks her. He then announces that it's time for him, Vivi, and Fem to be off. However, the village chief requests that Alfred take Millet along as an observer. Feeling he can't refuse an order from the chief, Alfred reluctantly agrees. Millet bows, saying that while she is inexperienced, she asks him to take care of her. He tells an excited Millet that he will protect her if danger arises. The group sets off as the villagers wave goodbye, wishing them well. Alfred reflects on his work in the secluded, affluent hot spring town of Merg village. After taking his leave from Millet, the village chief, accompanied by Fem, recommended some excellent bathhouses. Alfred is visibly thrilled by the suggestion. Alfred and Fem look upon a beautiful private hot spring, reserved just for them. The village chief kindly offers Alfred the use of any of the springs on the outskirts of the village. Alfred tells Fem he's heading in and asks her to wait, promising to wash her later. With an eager expression, Fem insists on being taken with him, causing Alfred to sigh. He gives in, warning her not to kick up a fuss or get dirty on purpose. Fem coolly assures him that she would never do such a thing. Alfred approaches the water, overjoyed at the prospect of his first hot bath in a while. Fem joyfully splashes around in the water. Alfred explains the rule of washing one's body before entering the bathtub, to which Fem agrees she knows. He happily scrubs Fem, who soaks up the attention with a contented look. Finally clean, a foot dips into the inviting hot spring water. Finally submerged in the warm water, both Alfred and Fem let out sighs of pure bliss as they relax in the serene outdoor bath. He comments on how the hot water feels like it's penetrating his knee, a sensation Fem doesn't quite understand. He asks if dogs dislike baths, but Fem confidently states that since she isn't a dog, there's no problem. He follows up by asking about wolves, and Fem again dismisses the concern, claiming she is not an everyday wolf. Alfred sighs in contentment, amazed at how good the hot spring feels despite it being summer. Alfred muses that the hot spring will have a different kind of elegance once winter arrives. He begins to feel dizzy and announces he's getting out, while Fem protests, wanting to stay longer. He is suddenly startled by a loud voice. A mud-covered girl appears, yelling about how she is different from inferior creatures and doesn't need a bath, leaving Alfred in disbelief. Millet warns that continued sweating will lead to a bad smell. Vivi, flanked by Millet and Colette, furiously denies that she will smell bad. One of the girls remarks that it's her first time at this bathhouse. Fem questions why Alfred is hiding, and he replies that he has morals. Alfred tries his best to ignore the girls on the other side of the spring. Millet tells Vivi to wash up, noting that Colette is already doing so, but Vivi shouts that she hates baths. Vivi's focus suddenly shifts to Millet. She comments on the surprising size of Millet's chest for an elf. Vivi angrily declares that things like that should not be exposed. Vivi continues to grope a flustered Millet. Millet stammers Vivi's name in shock, her mind reeling from the sensation. A third girl points out that no matter how much Vivi rubs them, Millet's breasts won't come off, while Millet pleads that she's getting angry. Elsewhere, Alfred covers his eyes, trying desperately to ignore the scene and remind himself that he is a gentleman. Fem observes that Alfred's face is beet red. He dismisses it as just feeling a little dizzy from the heat. His excuse is cut short when Millet spots him and Fem, and the other girls turn to see him in shock. Vivi, enraged, accuses Alfred of peeping and declares he has a death wish. He tries to explain that it is all a misunderstanding. Ignoring his pleas, she hurls a wooden bucket at his head, calling him an obscene sorcerer. Alfred's memory has been foggy since the incident. He slowly begins to wake up. Millet looks down at him, relieved to see that he is awake. Now dressed and sitting up, Alfred is berated by Vivy, who calls him a pathetic, vulgar creature. He remembers getting dizzy and fainting after being hit by the bucket. He feels that his reaction was rather pathetic for an S-rank sorcerer. Vivy questions why he was in what she believed was their reserved bath, but Alfred simply thanks the girls for their help. Alfred insists that the village chief recommended the place to him, and that he was sure it was reserved. Colette asks if he is feeling better, as the others mention they only heard about the bath through her. Colette cheerfully confirms she heard from the village chief that he recommended a reserved hot spring to Alfred and also said they could go too. This revelation shocks the other girls, who realize Colette's retelling of the story was misleading. The girls apologize for the miscommunication. Alfred suddenly realizes he has been changed into dry clothes and wonders when it happened. Millet checks on his condition and offers to get him some water. She explains that the hot spring's magical minerals can easily make sorcerers feel nauseous. As the younger girls approach him, Alfred wonders what they want. Colette whispers a shocking revelation to Alfred. Her big sister, Millet, was the one who put his underwear on for him. Mortified by this, Alfred feels he now owes Millet a huge favor. As they leave, Alfred enjoys the nice wind. He assumes that everyone else has already gone home. However, the girls are waiting just ahead, calling for him to hurry up. The girls playfully race back home, declaring that the loser misses dinner. Millet kindly tells Alfred not to rush, as she needs to prepare the meal anyway. One of the girls trips and falls, prompting playful concern from the others. Alfred watches them, smiling to himself at this comfortable moment with the kind villagers. He reflects that a life spent protecting them would not be so bad after all. Alfred Lint, a rank S sorcerer, reflects on his 5 days as a guard for Merg village. After dealing with the wildlife damage that had been troubling the village, he finally had a moment to relax. However, his peace was interrupted by the appearance of the mastermind, a demon girl named Vivy, who claims to be one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King army. Her grand scheme involved using magic to enlarge boars and raise dragons in an attempt to rebuild the Demon King army. Alfred, however, completely thwarted her efforts. He notes that while she's a bit of a dimwit, she isn't a bad person, and she is now in his custody, much to the fascination of the village children. A village elder discusses Vivy's treatment, suggesting it would be best to leave her in Alfred's care for the time being. Alfred agrees, noting that Vivy is not an opponent the village can handle, and apologizes for the trouble. When Alfred asks why they don't hand her over to the feudal lord, the elder explains that the lord despises great demons. Alfred understands that if they did, Vivy would likely face the death penalty. Alfred accepts the responsibility, and the elder thanks him, promising the village's assistance. Alfred declares his intention to make use of her by having her work for the village. As they walk, Alfred warns Vivy that at her current pace, she won't even be able to get lunch. While working, Vivy accidentally hits her finger with a hammer. Frustrated, she grumbles about her situation. She yells down from the roof, questioning why she has to do this, and Alfred retorts that it's because she burnt his roof. Millet says she has her own work to do and waves goodbye to Alfred. She explains that she helps tend to the cattle raised in the village. Suddenly, a young girl named Colette runs up to Alfred. She enthusiastically tells a flustered Alfred that she thinks her big sister would make a great bride. Alfred reflects that his interactions with Millet and Vivy are just part of his duties, doubting Millet would like an older man like him. Millet suddenly gets an idea, wondering if they could use Vivy's enlargement magic on the cows to get a ton of meat. Alfred seems uncertain about the idea. He points out that her ordinary cattle are different from magical beasts, and Millet questions if the crayfish wasn't demonic to begin with. Overhearing them, Vivy confidently boasts that anything she's involved with is a piece of cake. Millet gets excited and suggests they try it out in the afternoon, and Alfred enthusiastically agrees. Vivy shouts that she didn't agree to it, but Alfred points out that she did just say she could do it. Vivy declares that as one of the 4 heavenly kings, she is a distinguished being who should be served, not forced into manual labor. Alfred and Femme watch her impassively. Despite her complaints, Vivy quietly decides that tagging along for a little while couldn't hurt. Alfred praises Vivy's work, noting it was a bit clumsy but honest. Alfred suggests they head to the farm after a break, but Vivy is reluctant to go. A cheerful Millet calls out to them from the farm, announcing she's been waiting. Millet confirms the cow is ready, and Alfred instructs a nervous Vivy to form the magic circle. Vivy complains, calling the cow an inferior creature, and saying she's too tired to perform the magic. Alfred considers having Femme intimidate the cow instead. Provoked by Alfred's taunts, Vivy insists that she never said she couldn't do it. Femme points out that Alfred's face is turning beet red. Alfred feels dizzy, sweating and blushing profusely. Millet and Vivy are shocked by his sudden change in appearance, calling out his name in alarm. Vivy, now determined, tells everyone not to underestimate her and to watch quietly as she prepares to cast her spell in the pasture. Alfred observes her, thinking to himself how easily she gets provoked. Alfred notes that invoking multiple techniques at once isn't easy. Millet excitedly tells Alfred she's looking forward to the magic. He and Millet watch as Vivy kneels to draw the intricate circle, with Femme agreeing that it's time. Vivy announces that the magic circle is complete. She proudly declares that she made it twice as big, and Alfred compliments her on handling the task magnificently. Millet praises Vivy for her amazing work, and a proud Vivy accepts the compliments. As Millet says she needs to get back to work, Alfred offers their help. He winks, saying they can't just head back so easily, and Femme barks in agreement. Millet gratefully accepts their offer, calling them a godsend. She instructs them to loosen and prepare the straw for feed. Alfred begins to feed the cattle until they are full. Vivy is tasked with giving the cows love, though she grumbles about having already worked. Millet points out how happy the cow is, which surprises Vivy. Vivy hesitantly asks the cow if it's happy. She looks away, flustered by the interaction. After a productive day, the group is thanked for their help. Later, after bathing, a hungry Vivy approaches arresting Alfred and demands he make her food. Alfred complains that making food is a pain. He decides on jerky for dinner, much to Vivy's shock. Vivy is outraged at being served jerky for dinner, but Alfred defends his choice. Just then, Millet and her sister arrive, bringing them a proper dinner. Millet and her sister arrive with a splendid meal, much to Vivy's delight as Femme sniffs the air appreciatively. Alfred teases Vivy for having eaten jerky earlier, but Millet's sister assures him she brought his portion as well. With the food laid out, Alfred announces it's time for everyone to dig in. The meal is a hearty serving of Merg village beef stew. Alfred finds the stew delicious, and a happy Vivy asks for seconds. He thanks Millet for the food every day, but she humbly replies that cooking is a hobby of hers. Millet and her sister are delighted by Vivy's appetite, praising her apparent generosity. Millet's sister asks Alfred if he'd like more, and he enthusiastically agrees to have seconds too. Alfred internally remarks on how truly delicious the food is. Millet reflects on her happiness, having a good job and eating delicious meals. She continues her thought, cherishing the ability to laugh together with her comrades. The group finishes their satisfying dinner, thanking everyone for the meal. As they clean up after their meal, Alfred reflects that this kind of ordinary life makes him happy. He waves goodbye to Millet and her sister as they head home, promising to see them tomorrow. Alfred yawns and suggests it's time for them to sleep. He playfully pats Femme, unconcerned about getting hair on him. Annoyed, Vivy asks how long she's expected to sleep in the pit. Alfred teases her, suggesting it will be until another bed is made. Vivy misinterprets this as a considerate gesture, thinking he's already made arrangements for her. Alfred stands over Vivy, who has fallen asleep on the floor. He then abruptly grabs a startled Vivy, waking her up. Alfred tosses Vivy onto the bed, but she quickly claims it as her own, telling him to know his place. Before Alfred can react, Femme leaps onto him, pinning him to the floor. He yells at Vivy to sleep in the pit, but she just laughs triumphantly from the bed. As Alfred gets serious, a sleepy Femme just mutters that she's tired. To settle the dispute, Alfred proposes they make an agreement. He offers to split the territory, giving the wall side of the bed to Vivy. She reluctantly agrees, and Alfred warns her against any funny ideas as he gets into bed. Vivy wishes him good night with an annoyed expression. Night falls over the quiet farm. In their sleep, both Vivy and Femme begin to roll over. They end up completely crowding Alfred, leaving him squished between them. The agreement is officially broken as Alfred struggles for space, pinned by his sleeping companions. Unseen by them, the cow in the barn stirs from its sleep. A large magic circle begins to glow brightly on the barn floor. Alfred reflects on his guard duties and how he has been keeping wildlife damage under control. Millet cheerfully brings Alfred a new chair, which he gratefully accepts. A local farmer greets Alfred, complimenting him on doing a fine job. Alfred was just starting to relax, thinking he could finally get some rest. The village chief runs toward him in a panic, shouting his name. With a look of pure terror, the chief yells that the cow has become huge, leaving Alfred stunned. Alfred remembers setting up magical circles but insists it was not supposed to be to this extent. The two of them hurry towards the commotion. The village chief insists the situation is dire, begging Alfred to come with him. Alfred tries to calm the chief down as they race through the village. Alfred's face grows serious as he gets closer. He sees the giant cow towering over the landscape and understands the gravity of the situation. The scene is chaotic, with the giant cow bellowing and villagers panicking. Alfred yells for everyone to protect themselves and tells Millet to get to safety. Millet, however, is worried about him, explaining that the cow suddenly grew to its immense size. Alfred turns to Vivy, demanding an explanation for the cow's massive size. Vivy proudly admits that she improved the magical circles while she was taking care of the cow. She boasts about the results, while Alfred scolds her for her lack of restraint. Alfred seriously considers what their next course of action should be. The village chief says they can only turn it into meat now, as they were planning to sell it soon anyway. He explains the logistical problem of either transporting the giant live animal or preserving the massive amount of meat. Alfred devises a plan. He tells them he can use magic to preserve or store the meat. The village chief is ecstatic with relief, thanking Alfred profusely. Vivy remembers brushing the cow, who playfully licked her. The memory of her time spent with the creature fills her with dread. Alfred announces that he will put the cow down and begins to gather magic. A voice calls out for him to stop. Vivy stands protectively in front of the cow, whom she has named Mufi. She tearfully insists that Mufi has done nothing wrong and begs Alfred to stop. Alfred looks on with a conflicted expression, feeling it's a pity but seeing no alternative. Alfred is surprised to hear Vivy call the cow Mufi, correcting her that its name is 8. His companion notes that Vivy has clearly already given it a proper name. Vivy furiously accuses Alfred of planning to harm Mufi after it gave her such adorable looks. She calls him savage for his plan. Vivy angrily confronts Alfred, asking if he's planning to eat Mufi too. With a firm resolve, Alfred confirms that he is. Distraught, Vivy questions his coldness, insisting Mufi is a special cow. Alfred calmly explains that Mufi is now so large it will struggle to find food, and it could destroy half the village if it rolls over in its sleep. Millet gently adds that the cow was always intended to be sold for meat. Millet comforts Vivy, assuring her it's not her fault. She places a comforting hand on Vivy's back. Vivy apologizes tearfully, feeling responsible for its fate because she made it grow so large. Alfred steps forward, shouldering the burden. He tells Vivy it wasn't her fault, as he was the one who asked for the cow to be taken down without suffering, and says to leave it to him. Alfred approaches the massive creature as it lets out a low moo. He prepares to strike, intending to use a magical spear to swiftly penetrate its vitals. With a powerful blast of magic, Alfred strikes the cow. The magical spear hits its mark. The giant creature collapses to the ground, and Alfred arranges for the villagers to quickly drain its blood and disassemble the carcass. Alfred explains he used explosive magic to dig a large hole to preserve the meat. He then used storage magic on the pit, converting it into a makeshift magical bag. This increased its capacity without any visible change in volume. The villagers then filled the pit with the disassembled meat and covered it with the excavated soil. A villager asks if the meat will truly stay preserved for a long time and is told it will stay fresh for a year. Alfred reassures them with a smile not to worry. The villagers are ecstatic, praising Alfred's amazing abilities and scheming to make him stay permanently. Hearing their plans, his companion notes they'll be having a yakiniku party tonight. Vivy kneels before the earthen mound where Mufi's mate is buried. She quietly wishes it to sleep peacefully. The others respectfully give her a moment before walking away. Sizzling meat grills over open fires. The village erupts into a joyous feast as everyone celebrates, toasting to their good fortune. Even the youngest children delight in the delicious meal. The elderly villagers remark on how extravagant it is. Villagers eagerly serve Alfred the most expensive cuts of meat. He admits they are extremely delicious. However, he excuses himself and asks for a vegetarian dish and some juice. He brings the plate to a grieving Vivy, gently telling her she has done well. Vivi sits apart from the others, refusing to eat. Alfred's companion tells her he won't force her, but points out there are vegetables available, though she insists she has no appetite. Nearby, Millet enjoys her meal, remarking on how delicious it is. She approaches Vivi with a plate of meat, gently reminding her that everyone eats living things to survive. Vivi quietly acknowledges that her big sister used to tell her the same thing. Looking at the meat, she concedes that Millet is right. Millet explains that since Mufi became meat, it is their responsibility to honor it. She asks if it isn't their duty to eat it without wasting anything. Millet observes Vivi, who finally concedes that she is right. Vivi cuts a piece of the meat and brings it to her mouth. A look of pure delight spreads across Vivi's face as she declares that it's delicious. A voice quietly thanks Mufi for the meal. Inside the house, Alfred is asleep in his bed while Femme rests on the floor. Alfred is stirred awake by someone hugging him, and he groggily wonders if this is happening again. Alfred is surprised to find Vivi sleeping beside him, murmuring the name Mufi in her sleep. He looks down at her, startled. Alfred gently strokes Vivi's head, reassuring her that everything is going to be okay. Femme sleeps peacefully nearby. He softly wishes her sweet dreams. Vivi settles into a peaceful slumber. A cheerful Vivi wakes Alfred with a jolt, telling him there's work to do today. A groggy Alfred complains about her violent methods. He asks if Vivi is okay now, and she confirms she's fine as a small winged girl announces she's brought them breakfast. Vivi is back to her cheerful self, chatting with Millet and another girl. Alfred watches them, relieved to see Vivi has recovered, thinking that's all that matters. After a hearty breakfast, Vivi sighs contentedly, exclaiming that she's totally full. Alfred greets the village chief, who has come with a request. The chief explains his plan to head to town tomorrow to sell the beef. He mentions recent rumors of bandits and formally asks Alfred to escort them, a request Alfred accepts. Alfred learns that the next merchants won't arrive for another month. Despite the chief's concern about him being tired, Alfred insists that he is fine and will handle the escort mission. The grateful village chief thanks him. The villagers express their gratitude, and Alfred is touched by their concern for his well-being. It is summertime, and with the autumn tax season approaching, Alfred understands the village's need to sell the meat quickly. Alfred tells Vivi it is time for them to get ready. Vivi questions why she should help. Alfred asks her to create a large number of magical bags, appealing to her specialty. Flustered but proud, Vivi agrees that she does specialize in them. Vivi teasingly calls Alfred hopeless as they leave, apologizing for not being able to help clean up. A nearby girl looks on with a confused expression. Alfred explains that he will first split the cow's skin, then use magic to sew large bags. Alfred explains to Vivi that they will need to use 3 specific magic circles for the bags, in large capacity, constant state, and constant mass. The onlookers are amazed by the intricate magic being discussed. Millet notes that it seems difficult but amazing, while Alfred tells Vivi he will try drawing them first. The magical bag, adorned with glowing circles, is complete. Alfred praises Vivi's skill, but she modestly claims she only modified his makeshift circles. With the bag ready, Alfred announces it is time to pack the meat and inspect their equipment. Vivi looks on with a determined, slightly flushed expression. Millet asks Vivi why she has started addressing Alfred as "my dear Al." She points out that Vivi had been calling him a bastard up until yesterday. Vivi claims she was just trying it out since everyone else addresses him so casually. Vivi is extremely flustered by the question. Millet playfully accuses Vivi of being deceptive, but Vivi insists she isn't implying anything. As Alfred works in the background, Millet reflects that by sharing in their joys and sorrows, Vivi has truly become a resident of Merg village. At sunrise, the group began their 8-hour journey to a large town in order to sell Mufi's meat. Alfred and Femme were the designated escorts for the trip. Millet was tasked with handling the sales, while Vivi and Colette joined as attendants. Millet checks in on Alfred, who confirms the ride is quite pleasant. She offers to take over driving duties if he gets tired, mentioning her experience with carriages. Another companion remarks that Millet is a total workaholic. Before they left, the village chief saw them off, placing his trust in Millet to represent the village. Alfred had assured him he would support her. He muses on her admirable qualities, noting she is honest, wise, and trusted enough to be considered the next village chief. Vivi rests on Alfred's lap, claiming to be light, while he complains about his leg going numb and her horns hurting him. At Millet's command, Femme playfully attacks Vivi with licks. Vivi cries out for Femme to stop as Millet laughs at the scene. Millet looks on fondly, thinking how nice their camaraderie is. Suddenly Femme's ear perks up, sensing danger. Alfred's demeanor changes instantly, and he calls out to get everyone's attention. His face is grim as he silently assesses the unseen threat. He tells Femme to watch their backs, and she acknowledges the command. Millet calls out to Alfred, confused about the sudden change in atmosphere. In the next moment, an arrow flies past her, lodging itself in the carriage. An incoming arrow is stopped midair by a shimmering magical barrier. Alfred tells a frightened Millet to get inside the carriage. He quickly identifies the attacker's strategy as a typical bandit ambush. Their plan involves blocking the road with logs after taking out the driver to prevent any escape. A bandit leader offers them a chance to live if they hand over their cargo and horse, but Alfred, noting their skill, refuses because the cargo is too important. The bandit leader warns that everyone who defies him dies. Alfred retorts that those who comply also die. The bandit disagrees, stating that people are an important commodity. He reveals with a greedy grin that they can be sold as valuable slaves. While his companions react with disgust from inside the carriage, Alfred confidently states he won't be captured or let them escape, daring them to come at him. Infuriated, the bandit leader commands his men to kill Alfred. As they rush in, Alfred simply dismisses their attack as being too slow. He thinks to himself that their slow movements are natural for everyday bandits. Despite their lack of skill, he notes internally that he never looks forward to fighting. With incredible speed, Alfred leaps into the fray, his movements a blur to the stunned bandits. He effortlessly dispatches several of them before they can even react. In moments, the bandits are left in a foolish pile on the ground. Their defiant leader, still not grasping the situation, sneers that his other men are currently attacking the carriage. Unbeknownst to the leader, his men at the carriage are being mauled by a ferocious Femme as the bandit leader desperately yells for his archers to shoot. One of the other guards remarks that arrows are useless against a target that sees them coming. As if to prove his point, Femme easily pins down another bandit, an arrow having missed her completely. Alfred finishes the job, using magic to bind the remaining bandits from a distance. With the fight concluded, he asks Femme if she senses any other threats, and she confirms that the area is now clear. Alfred smiles, relieved that the danger has passed. He instructs Femme to gather the defeated bandits. He then checks on Vivi and the others in the carriage, who are stunned that the battle is already over. Alfred notices Vivi's incomplete magical circle, explaining that she was trying to protect them but didn't finish in time. Vivi argues that a flawed circle will misfire. Alfred reassures her that in a real battle, a 70% complete circle is sufficient, prioritizing speed over perfection. He elaborates that while complex academy magic is wondrous, it isn't designed for battle. He contrasts it with the practical, chantless magic used by wandering sorcerers. Just then, Femme announces that she has finished gathering all the bandits. With the bandits secured, Alfred announces they'll head to town, leaving Femme to guard them. As they get back on the carriage, Millet insists on driving. She explains she needs to properly escort Alfred after the recent danger. Millet blushes, excitedly asking if this means she gets to be protected by Alson again, and Alfred agrees. Colette chimes in, suggesting they all try their hardest together. Millet is lost in a happy daze, captivated by Alfred. Soon after, Alfred spots their destination, announcing that the town is just up ahead. They arrive at a large fortified town. Upon entering, Alfred turns the bandits over to the sentries. He learns the men were wanted and receives a sizable bounty for their capture. Holding up the bag of money, Alfred excitedly declares that they'll enjoy a nice meal to celebrate as Millet congratulates him. The group walks through the bustling streets of the massive town, taking in the sights. Vivi, looking around at the crowds, cheerfully remarks on the swarms of inferior beings. To avoid trouble, Alfred quickly gives her a hood. He tells her it would be problematic if her demon identity were exposed. She reluctantly agrees and thanks him. As they ride into town, Alfred decides it's best to be cautious, even if he doubts the local lord truly despises demons. He instructs Femme to pretend to be a dog, much to Vivi's surprise. Femme happily plays along, putting on a cute dog-like face. Millet cheerfully comments on how Femme is now unmistakably a dog. The group arrives at a meat shop to conduct their business. Millet volunteers to handle the sale negotiations, asking Alfred to back her up if needed. The shopkeeper looks on with a worried expression, questioning the circumstances. Millet enthusiastically praises the quality of the meat processed under their sorcerer's management. The shopkeeper inspects the product and agrees that it appears to be good quality meat. He mentions that while he's heard rumors about it, he's skeptical because there's no one in the area who can use preservation magic. His main concern is that the meat might spoil, having been handled by a mere small village sorcerer. Alfred intervenes, offering to provide a written guarantee to ease the shopkeeper's doubts. Alfred calmly presents a document that leaves the shopkeeper speechless. It's a certificate of authenticity signed by Alfred Lint of the hero party. Overwhelmed, the shopkeeper apologizes for his skepticism. Alfred leans in and quietly requests that his presence in the town remain a secret. He smoothly steers the conversation back to business, noting that his S-rank status provides exceptional credibility. Millet thanks Alfred for preventing a troublesome negotiation, but he brushes it off as a sorcerer's basic duty. The deal is successfully concluded, and the shopkeeper provides a massive bag of money as payment. The sun starts to set as their business for the day is finished. As Alfred's group prepares to leave, the shopkeeper calls out to him. He gushes about how surprised and honored he is to have met the famous Lord Alfred, promising to keep his identity a secret. The shopkeeper humbly asks for an autograph, explaining his son is a big fan. Alfred agrees, thinking it wouldn't hurt. As Alfred asks for the son's name, an impatient Vivy shouts from the carriage, wondering what is taking so long. The merchant thanks him profusely and waves them off, extending a warm invitation to visit again. With their job done, the group settles their coach at an inn for the evening. Millet, Vivy, and Colette, their eyes sparkling at the sight of local treats, eagerly propose a walk around the town. The group stops at a food stall, where the girls are thrilled by the delicious-looking food unavailable in Merg village. Alfred smiles and orders 4 of the treats for the group. Noticing Femme's interest, he kindly adds one more to the order for her. Millet savors her treat, remarking on how delicious it is. Vivy and Colette also enjoy their food, exclaiming that it's incredibly scrumptious. Alfred briefly hesitates, wondering if it's safe to feed this to a wolf. He reasons that Femme isn't an ordinary wolf, so it should be fine, just as she begins slurping it down. He offers her the treat, which she eagerly accepts. Alfred takes a bite of his own, finding the delicious sweetness a perfect remedy for his exhaustion. Next, they spot a vendor carving a massive, juicy steak. Everyone immediately wants a piece, and Millet jokes that Femme's hunger is affecting her vocabulary. Alfred agrees that since they've come all this way, they might as well enjoy themselves. Femme drools with anticipation as Alfred prepares to get her a piece. The entire group enjoys the extravagant and heavenly steak, finding the food stall to be an excellent choice. Everyone is satisfied after eating all the delicious food. Alfred explains he booked a more expensive inn since they are lodging together with Femme. At the inn, the receptionist shows them to their room. They are surprised when she hands them a key for just one room. The room contains 2 large, comfortable-looking beds. Alfred turns to Millet, seemingly anticipating her question about the sleeping situation. Alfred confirms her suspicion that they will all be sleeping together, justifying it with the inn's expense. Just as he guessed, his directness leaves Millet flustered and speechless. Vivy casually dismisses any issue with them all staying in the same room. She then sits on the bed and provocatively declares that she usually shares a bed with Alfred anyway. Alfred smirks at a stunned Millet and asks Vivy what she is doing there. The realization of sleeping together makes Millet blush furiously. Her shock seems to echo throughout the entire inn. Millet grabs Alfred, demanding to know if he is actually sleeping with Vivy. Alfred confirms it is true, as they only have one bed. Millet then points out that Femme is with them too, calling her a dog, which prompts an annoyed Femme to correct her that she is a wolf. Vivy asks Alfred if he couldn't just sleep with her as always. To solve the problem, Alfred suggests Femme can sleep with Millet and Colette. A flustered Millet immediately objects to the idea, telling Femme she does not need to join them. Millet complains that it will be too cramped with Colette and invites Vivy to sleep with her instead. Alfred watches as an argument breaks out between the two. Vivy smirks, asking Millet why she is getting so upset and accusing her of being jealous. Millet becomes extremely flustered by the ongoing conversation. To settle the dispute, Alfred offers to sleep on the floor. However, Millet vehemently protests, insisting she could never let him do that. Alfred reassures them, explaining that as a former adventurer, a wooden floor is a luxury compared to rocks. Seeing the stalemate, Colette brightly announces that she will sleep with Alfred. This new suggestion gives Millet and Vivi pause, making them reconsider. Ultimately, Alfred ends up sharing a bed with Colette and Femme. Colette happily snuggles into Femme's fluffy fur. Colette wishes Alfred a good night as she settles in. Alfred, however, finds himself being pushed toward the very edge of the bed. In their shared room, two figures are asleep in separate beds. One of them, Vivi, mutters in her sleep, complaining about her bedmate taking up too much space and how ridiculous it is for inferior creatures to be her equal. A sound stirs the other occupant of the room from his sleep. Alfred is abruptly woken from his slumber. He sits up, startled and confused, to find Millet sleeping soundly beside him in his bed. Staring at the sleeping elf, Alfred calls out her name, but she only stirs slightly. He wonders if she got up for the bathroom and, being half asleep, climbed into the wrong bed, noticing that she's clinging tightly to his arm. Millet murmurs Alfred's name in her sleep with a contented smile. Seeing her peaceful expression, a flustered Alfred covers his face and decides to just let it be, resigning himself to the situation. As morning arrives, Vivi wakes up. She stretches and then notices that Millet is missing from the bed beside her. A sudden, furious realization dawns on her. An enraged scream echoes from the inn. Vivi storms over to Alfred's bed and confronts Millet, accusing the shameless elf of secretly creeping into his bed. Millet, still dazed, claims she didn't even notice. Vivi refuses to believe her, yelling that she's a liar and that her guilt is written all over her face. Millet, still yawning, denies any such thing. As Alfred tries to intervene, a sleepy Millet tells him she's still tired, confirming she was not fully aware of her actions. This only infuriates Vivi more, and she begins hitting Millet with a pillow. Alfred sighs, thinking he can't take his eyes off them for a second, as Vivi drags the sleepy Millet away. Later, with things calmed down, a tired Colette sleeps on Alfred's lap, and he gently tells her to rest. Having left the inn, the group heads into town to go shopping. Holding a note from the village chief, Millet cheerfully announces she will handle the shopping and waves goodbye. Alfred watches her go, thinking that she's quite reliable when it comes to bargaining. Just then, Colette excitedly calls out to him, pointing at something nearby. Colette, Millet and Femme are drawn to an ice cream cart, their excitement palpable. Alfred smiles and gives them some money, telling the girls to go on ahead. Ecstatic, they all rush off towards the vendor to get a treat. Colette and Millet happily enjoy their frozen treats. The group loads their supplies onto a wagon, preparing for the journey back to their village. The horse-drawn wagon is ready to depart on the cobblestone street. As their wagon begins to move, Millet tells Alfred that she had an extremely fun time and enjoyed all the delicious food. From the back of the cart, Colette and Vivi watch the town recede into the distance. Colette watches the scenery pass with a gentle smile. The road home from the bustling city is a tranquil one, as their wagon makes its way through the countryside. The journey becomes bumpy as they get closer. Alfred jokes that the horrible road is a sure sign they are almost home, and Millet resignedly agrees. Soon the village comes into view, and both express their relief at finally arriving. As they pull into Merg village and are greeted by the locals, Alfred reflects on his life as an adventurer. He realizes that despite the short time he has lived there, he has grown attached to the village and feels a profound sense of relief to be home. Alfred begins to unload the supplies, and Vivi proudly points out that her magic has made the heavy cargo feel as light as a feather. He is surprised to see the villagers gathered, clapping for their return. An older woman thanks them, saying they must be tired from the long trip. An elder expresses his heartfelt gratitude for their devotion to the village. A woman expresses her happiness that meat is now cheaper thanks to the giant cow, as Vivi internally takes credit. They also praise Alfred for his role in defeating the bandits, though he humbly brushes it off as just doing his job. One man specifically commends Millet for being so dependable and amazing, causing her to beam with pride. Alfred agrees that taking a well-deserved rest is a great idea. He and Femme relax in the warm water of a hot spring. Alfred recalls being told that upon returning to Merg village, the land of secret hot springs, the bathhouses are a must-visit. He remembers asking the village chief to show him where the nice bathhouses are. To recover from their long journey, Alfred and his companions head to a hot spring. Alfred praises the abundance of hot baths, and Millet expresses her joy that they're all visiting for the first time together. Femme seems to share in the excitement, while Alfred muses that he would like to visit every day to help his knee recuperate. Upon arriving at the hot spring building, Millet excitedly points it out. A polite debate begins, with Alfred suggesting the girls go first, while Millet insists he should be the one to enter. Vivi sighs, observing that their polite back and forth isn't getting them anywhere. She suddenly declares she's going in first, rushing past a surprised Millet. Alfred decides to end the argument by announcing he'll go in first, since it's his job to wash Femme. With a determined look, he walks toward the entrance. The girls watch with mixed expressions as Alfred goes inside. Inside, Alfred begins to undress, remarking that while the space is small, it feels quite nice as he eagerly anticipates the bath. Alfred is thrilled to find a beautiful, isolated hot spring with a perfect view. Noticing there on a cliff, he decides to set up a protective barrier just in case it's dangerous for Colette. He then turns to Femme, who is already dipping her paw in, and tells her it's time to get washed. While washing a happy Femme, Alfred brings up something that has been on his mind. He bluntly asks if her intellect has been decreasing, which shocks and offends her. Femme demands to know how he could be so rude, but Alfred clarifies he's referring to her recent doggy aura. Femme retorts that humans, with their frail means of speech, simply cannot comprehend other forms of communication. Calling him a newbie, she states there are plenty of other methods of conveyance, leaving Alfred to muse on her sudden impertinence while covered in bubbles. Alfred calmly accepts her point. He offers to wash the bubbles off, but Femme accuses him of being blind to his own stupidity. Their interaction is cut short by Colette's excited arrival, causing Alfred to panic and warn her that it's dangerous to get too excited. Vivy and Colette arrive, with Vivy immediately telling Alfred not to stare at her. Alfred insists he wasn't looking, but Vivy retorts that he must have known they were coming in. She then proudly declares herself a high-class demon who won't follow the practices of inferiors, a statement Alfred finds contradictory to her earlier actions. Millet approaches Alfred in the hot spring, intending to thank him. She shyly calls out to Alsan. Alfred is stunned as she expresses her gratitude for his troubles. Millet clarifies her intentions with a cheerful declaration that she is going to wash his back, leaving Alfred stunned. Alfred frantically tries to decline, insisting that the sentiment alone is enough, but Millet tells him there's no need to hold back. He glances over at Femme, who is swimming peacefully nearby. Alfred tries to tell her she doesn't need to mind him, but she insists he should relax. She explains that it's also a thank you for protecting them from the bandits. Millet gently guides him to sit down, urging him to accept her offer. Feeling he cannot refuse her earnestness, Alfred reluctantly agrees. Millet notices Alfred's back is covered with scars, which he explains are from his days as an adventurer. She finds them cool, her heart fluttering. Vivy teases that scars on a back indicate a knight's shame, prompting Alfred to clarify that he isn't a knight. Colette calls out to Femme, telling her they are done. Femme happily splashes in the water with Colette. Millet announces she has finished with Alfred's back, and he thanks her. Millet declares she will now move on to his front, much to Alfred's shock. He panics and insists he can wash himself, but she tells him not to hold back. She firmly rejects his protests. Alfred flinches as her cold fingers touch his chest. He continues to protest, trying to demonstrate that he can wash himself just fine. Vivy appears with a mischievous grin, demanding that Al wash her back. Vivy argues that it is her privilege to have Al wash her back. Millet offers to wash Vivy's back instead, much to Vivy's dismay. As Millet drags Vivy away, Alfred sighs in relief, having been saved by the interruption. Finally able to relax, Alfred soaks in the hot spring, letting out a contented sigh. He enjoys the peace and the view of the open sky. He feels close to the sky, basking in the moment. The therapeutic water seems to be penetrating deep into his injured knee, providing welcome relief. Colette asks Alfred if his knee hurts, and he confirms that while it does, it's not unbearable. Hearing it hurts, Colette offers to massage it for him. He thanks her, remarking that the pain already feels much better. Alfred recalls an old adventurer's complaint that his joints would hurt on days with bad weather. He likens the man's pain to his own, accepting that he can still lead a normal life. However, he concludes that it would be too tough to continue being an adventurer. He fears that even with his ability to read enemy weaknesses, his physical state might become a liability to his friends. Alfred is surprised as Millet, overwhelmed by the heat, emerges from the water. Millet exclaims that it's too hot and she's getting out, as Vivy and Colette look on. Alfred offers to look after Millet, encouraging the others to enjoy their bath, and they thank him. Millet expresses how healed and satisfied she feels after the bath. Alfred, now dressed, thanks Millet and informs the others he's going to make dinner. Alfred speaks with the village chief and thanks the villagers for their help. The chief approaches Alfred and Vivi, indicating he needs something. He clarifies that his request is for Vivi, who wonders what he could want. The village chief explains that the villagers would like her to use her enlargement magic on a cow again, much to Alfred's surprise. The chief specifies they only want a small enlargement this time, but Alfred starts to turn down the request for her. Alfred recalls how depressed Vivi was because of the previous incident. Vivi questions Alfred's decision to refuse the request on her behalf. She asserts that if anyone is going to turn them down, it should be her. Changing her tone completely, Vivi cheerfully agrees to help the village chief. The village chief expresses his concern, asking if she is sure and telling her not to overdo it. Vivi proudly declares her identity as a genius sorcerer and one of the 4 heavenly kings to reassure them. Alfred finds it strange for her to call herself a genius when he was just worrying about her. He offers to help her if she needs it, but Vivi insists there is no need. Alfred admits there might be something she can help with, and Vivi proposes observing him as a learning opportunity. Vivi is thrilled with the plan to study and declares it a perfect arrangement. The next day, as they head to the farm, a concerned Millet asks Vivi if she will be okay. Vivi confidently lectures that inferior creatures should not make light of a 4 heavenly king. Alfred and Millet watch, with Alfred noting that Vivi seems to have moved past what happened before. He feels a wave of relief seeing Vivi's smiling face. Watching his friends, Alfred reflects that he thinks they are all returning to an ordinary lifestyle now. Sometime after volunteering to be a guard for Merg village, Alfred finds himself enjoying a peaceful, retired life. With the village's problems mostly resolved, his only new issue is having far too much free time. Looking for something to do, Alfred calls to Femme. He tries to entice her into a game of fetch. Alfred promises her a reward for fetching the ball. Femme enthusiastically dashes off, kicking up a cloud of dust that irritates a nearby Vivi. Alfred watches Femme play, remarking that her wild dog-like instincts are showing. Vivi scoffs in agreement, calling her a wild dog. She then proudly shows Alfred some magical circles she's created, explaining their offensive and concealment properties, and he admits they look skillfully done. Alfred praises Femme's remarkable speed, which annoys Vivi. Femme returns with the ball, interrupting their conversation. The two begin to squabble, prompting Alfred to ask if they could please control themselves. As Femme affectionately licks a flustered Vivi, she complains that she will reek like a dog. Alfred simply smiles, content. Looking at the peaceful night sky, he thinks to himself that he is truly happy with this life. Later that night, Alfred sleeps soundly on the floor of his home. Femme lies beside him, her eyes open and alert. Femme nudges Alfred awake, and he groggily asks if she needs to use the bathroom. She indicates that is not it. He then asks what is the matter. Femme explains that she was cold, having heard the howls of her brethren, and tells a tired Alfred to go back to sleep. She tells him it seems there is trouble and asks to take a short leave. Alfred, now more awake, offers to help somehow. Femme declines, saying the sentiment is enough as she heads for the door. She states that this is her duty as the king. As Femme begins to transform, she states that this is her duty. Alfred watches her transform into her much larger form, remarking that it feels like an eternity since he last saw her like this. Femme tells Alfred she will be back, and he promises to return by dinner the next day, telling her to let him know of any concerns. He reflects that while she was once a skinny wolf, she now looks fearless and strong. She nuzzles him gently before departing. Alfred reassures her that he will be fine and tells her to go on. She disappears down the path into the forest. Alfred watches her go. Alfred's sleep is disturbed by troubling thoughts. He gets out of bed, a sense of unease lingering from a nightmare. In reality, he is already awake in bed, with Vivi sleeping soundly beside him. He lies there, his thoughts troubled. He recalls Femme telling him her pack of magical wolves had matured. However, her sudden summoning must mean something serious has happened. He worries, wondering if she could handle a threat as great as a gigantic magical boar. His nightmare vividly plays out his fears. Femme's pack is being overwhelmed by a monstrous, muscular boar. Vivi shakes him awake, calling for Al to wake up. Alfred wishes her a good morning. She asks what is wrong, explaining that he was moaning as if he were having a nightmare, and he admits it was an unpleasant dream. Vivi scoffs that a nightmare is to be expected from an inferior creature. She then asks where the puppy Femme has gone. Alfred explains that something happened to her pack, so she returned to the forest. The next morning, Alfred has breakfast with Millet and the others. He then heads out for his usual guard duty. While standing watch, Alfred's gaze keeps drifting to the forest path where Femme disappeared. He can't help but picture her and her pack. He lets out a worried sigh. Vivi finds him and asks if he is worried about the puppy. Alfred tries to brush it off, saying Femme will be back by dinner. Vivi gets his attention. Unconvinced, she proudly presents her own invention, a magical circle to prevent nightmares. Alfred understands she is worried about him in her own way. The rest of his duty is uneventful as he interacts with other villagers. Still, his thoughts remain on the forest. As evening settles, Alfred closes the village gate for the night. Alone with his thoughts, his concern for Femme is still clearly visible on his face. Millet tells Alfred that his meal is ready, and he thanks her for it. A young elf girl tugs on his sleeve, anxiously asking if Femme is not coming home. Alfred suggests she's just busy, but Millet quietly voices her concern that Femme might be in trouble. Alfred confidently states that since Femme is the magical wolf king, she will be fine. Millet and the young girl listen, still looking concerned. Alfred finishes his meal, remarking on how delicious it was. Millet, Vivi, and the young girl thank him for the compliment. Suddenly, a loud sound erupts from the entrance. Femme bursts through the door, and Alfred exclaims her name in surprise. The young elf girl, overjoyed and relieved, hugs Femme. Alfred welcomes Femme home, commenting on how late she is. The mood shifts as Femme gravely informs Alfred that she needs his help, leaving him and Vivi stunned. Resolving to act, Alfred declares that they should leave it to him. Alfred suggests Femme rest for a bit, but she insists that they don't have time. Ready to leave, Alfred agrees to go with Femme, who says she'll explain everything on the way. Vivi suddenly appears and declares that she is going with them. Alfred is taken aback by her sudden decision. Alfred helps Vivi onto Femme's back, explaining that as a sorceress she might be helpful. Alfred tries to stop Vivi from climbing onto the wolf's back. Vivi demands a ride, but Femme snarls, causing the girl to yelp in fear. Alfred tells a reluctant Femme that there's no helping it, but that Vivi could be an asset. Femme announces she will make an exception due to the emergency, and Alfred thanks her. Millet and the young elf girl wave from the doorway, wishing them a safe return. Alfred promises they will return as he, Vivi, and Femme depart into the night. While riding through the forest, Alfred asks Femme for guidance as they face an enemy she cannot handle alone. An unseen voice mocks them, causing Femme to growl in anger as Vivi lets out a frightened yelp. Vivi clings to Alfred's back, trembling. Alfred tells her not to mock Femme when she's also scared, then asks what kind of foe they are up against. The enemy is revealed to be a great undead dragon, a formidable foe that requires Alfred and his companions to act. The great undead dragon is described as an incredibly resilient creature. As the most powerful of beasts and an undead entity, it can move even after death. Conventional fatal blows like crushing its head or heart are ineffective. The only way to truly defeat it is to dismember its body and burn the remains to ashes. Alfred internally notes that defeating the dragon will be a time-consuming and painful task. Seeing Vivi's troubled expression, he turns to her and suggests that she doesn't have to come along for such a dangerous fight. Vivi, flustered but determined, boasts that a great undead dragon is no match for her, a statement Alfred finds promising. As they continue on their path, Alfred asks if they have arrived, and Femme confirms that they have. The group arrives at the base of a jagged, moonlit mountain range. Vivi looks on with a sense of apprehension at the imposing sight. Suddenly, glowing eyes appear in the darkness. A large pack of white wolves emerges from the forest. Femme explains that these are her followers. Alfred dismounts and approaches them, ready to explain the situation. One of the wolves recounts the previous night's events. The pack had attempted to repel a single great undead dragon but failed. After they called for Femme's help, a large number of lesser undead dragons appeared, overwhelming them completely. This is why they sought Alfred's assistance. Surveying the aftermath, Alfred sees the bodies of several fallen lesser undead dragons. He compliments the wolves on their strength, impressed they could defeat 3. Femme explains that she called on him to prevent any casualties among her pack. Femme stands with her followers as the magical wolf king. Her primary duty is the protection of her pack. Understanding the direness of the threat to her pack, Femme formally bows her head to Alfred and Vivi, requesting their help. Alfred knows that while Femme is strong enough to fight, victory against the dragon is not certain. He recognizes that she has grasped the true difference in power between herself and the enemy. As their king, she is setting aside her pride to protect the lives of her wolves. Alfred gently tells Femme she is a magnificent king and should raise her head. With a confident smile, he accepts her request, and Vivy enthusiastically adds that they should leave it to them. From a high vantage point under the moonlight, Femme observes that it is quiet. Alfred realizes the undead dragons are heading towards Femme's forest. He remarks that protecting Merg village, which lies just beyond it, is his duty as a guard. Alfred quickly devises a strategy, instructing Femme's wolves to fend off the lesser dragons while he takes on the great one. When Vivy asks for her assignment, Alfred simply tells her he trusts her to do what she sees fit. Understanding, she dashes off into the battle. Standing before the mountains, Alfred begins to chant a powerful incantation, calling upon ancient rulers and powers to open the gates of purgatory. He prepares to scorch away the world's impurity with an inferno of eternal darkness. Completing the spell, Alfred unleashes a massive wave of fire, announcing his name as Alfred Tint. The inferno surges forward, engulfing the mountainside. Vivy watches in utter shock, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the power Alfred has just unleashed. However, when the flames subside, the great undead dragon emerges, roaring and completely unharmed. Alfred is taken aback, realizing he held back too much power to spare the forest, and accepts that the creature is too resilient to be burned to ashes so easily. Alfred notes that the great dragon is not only undead, but is also protected by a powerful magical barrier. He then sees that the lesser dragons also survived the blast by taking cover in the great dragon's shadow. Undeterred, Alfred rallies his allies, shouting for everyone to attack together as planned. He leaps forward alongside two large magical beasts to begin the assault. Femme lets out a mighty roar, her jaws wide open in defiance. The lesser dragons swarm, snapping and clawing in the chaotic fight. Alfred unleashes a volley of magical spears. The spears fly through the air with incredible speed. He observes as his attack is deflected by the dragon's invisible shield. The dragon stands unharmed by the assault. With a determined look, Alfred declares it is time for round 2. The dragon braces for the next assault. Alfred soars towards the massive dragon, closing the distance between them. The spears strike the dragon's body with force. Alfred announces the beginning of round 3, casting another spell. The dragon is caught in the path of the oncoming magical force. The magical energy slams into the dragon, causing it to cry out in pain. Alfred observes the dragon's pained state and decides to deliver a quick final blow. The beast struggles on the forest floor. Femme notices the lesser dragons are all trying to run for it. The undead dragons fly away from the battlefield, but a glowing magic circle activates beneath them, trapping them. Vivy calls forth her blades of wind, unleashing a torrent of slicing magic. The blades of wind cut through the dragons in midair. The defeated creatures plummet into the forest below. Alfred observes the fallen dragon, its barrier now gone, and readies his sword for the finishing strike. Vivy exclaims that the dragon is still twitching. Alfred looks down at the creature and tells it to rest in peace. He then incinerates the remains, ensuring they will not rise again. Femme's eye reflects the flames. The great wolf lifts her head and lets out a long howl. Vivy explains to Alfred that Femme and the pack are howling to confirm the death of their foe. Alfred smiles, visibly relieved that the long fight is over. The rising sun signals their hard-won victory. With the battle over, they had defeated one great dragon and 20 lessers. Alfred remarks on the pity of seeing such proud dragons turned into undead zombies. He wonders aloud who would resort to zombification magic, calling it the ultimate taboo. Alfred explains that the horrifying technique turns its victims into living corpses, their consciousness trapped inside a puppet body with no dignity. He and Vivy share a quiet moment, offering a prayer for the mortified dragons. Deciding to retrieve the drops from their kills, Alfred mentions that Millet and Colette must be worried. As Vivy offers to help, Alfred suddenly asks why she came with him. Vivy is caught off guard by the question. She stammers for a moment before coming up with an answer. Vivy brightly declares that she only helped so the puppies would be indebted to her. She loudly proclaims that she isn't the slightest bit concerned about them. Alfred seems to see through her flimsy excuse, realizing her true intentions. Alfred pats Vivy on the head, understanding she was actually concerned about Femme and acknowledging her efforts. He then turns them around, heading deeper into the forest as a confused Vivy demands to know what he meant, and Femme wonders why they aren't heading back. Meanwhile, Millet waits anxiously outside. A sound in the distance suddenly catches her attention. Millet rushes out just in time to see the group emerging from the forest. Alfred, riding atop Femme with Vivi running alongside, calls out her name. Vivi cheerfully asks if she had been waiting for them. Overcome with relief, Millet greets Alfred with a happy cry. The entire group gathers for a joyous reunion. Millet welcomes them back, and Vivi and Colette happily announce that they are home. Millet joyfully embraces Femme upon their return. Alfred notices how tired she and Colette look, realizing they've been waiting sleeplessly for days. Millet confirms they waited anxiously for days. He apologizes for worrying them and offers his thanks. Exhausted but relieved that everyone is safe, Alfred decides it's time for a much-needed break. The group agrees to get something to eat and take it easy as they walk off together. Later, while Alfred organizes his inventory outside, Vivi asks what he is doing. Millet arrives, calling out to Alfred. She has brought the village chief, who announces that he heard Alfred had a request for him. Alfred thanks the chief for coming and says he has something to show him. He promptly unveils the massive head of a great dragon. He nonchalantly adds that he collected items from about 20 dragons the previous night, leaving the chief speechless. Alfred explains that it's too much to handle alone. He asks the chief about renting a cheap place for storage. The chief is stunned, confirming that all of this loot came from the dragons. The chief seems to view Alfred with awe, wondering if he is one of those who worships dragons as divine beings. Alfred quickly clarifies they were undead, leaving him no choice. This only increases the chief's admiration, as he praises Alfred's amazing feat. The chief declares that Alfred is undoubtedly the protector of Mulg village. Alfred offers a quiet thanks. Millet enthusiastically agrees with the chief's assessment, gushing over how amazing Alfred is. The chief emphasizes that defeating so many dragons is a feat only achievable by a powerful group or skilled veterans. He thinks back to his own past as a veteran adventurer. He sternly warns Alfred not to overdo it, as facing a dragon usually means death, and Alfred promises to be careful. To address the storage problem, the chief has an idea. He offers Alfred a plot of land outside the village to use as he wishes. Alfred is delighted by the offer, declaring it the perfect place to build a warehouse. Putting his skills to work, Alfred uses magic to help with the construction. He tells the workers he can assist with the foundation and assembly, and they marvel at the convenience of his abilities. A carpenter remarks that it might be easier for a wizard to handle carpentry, as Millet and Vivi look on in awe. The group stands before the newly finished building, admiring their handiwork. Alfred marvels at the interior, noting its sturdiness and impressive capacity. Vivi proudly explains that her work is the result of an artist's touch, not simple combat magic. Alfred jokingly suggests Vivi should become a carpenter instead of a wizard. Vivi leads Alfred to a specific room, declaring it the storage for their valuables. Alfred is taken aback, wondering if such measures are truly necessary. With a confident smirk, Vivi announces that she has it all planned out. Alfred looks on with skepticism as Vivi appears determined. Vivi is intensely focused on her reading. Confused, Alfred asks why she is so studious, but she confidently tells him to just wait. Millet asks Alfred and Femme for their help gathering herbs. Alfred asks Vivi to join them, but she refuses, saying she is busy with preparations. Alfred asks Femme if she also smells something stinky. Millet explains that the herbs have a bad smell and tells Alfred to cover his nose. She volunteers to go get the herbs while Alfred and Femme wait. Femme finds the strong smell to be quite good. Alfred asks Femme why she is sniffing his rear, confused by her behavior. He tells her to stop as she continues to sniff him. Millet returns quickly, having gathered what she needed. Alfred decides it's time for them to return home. Suddenly, a hand grabs Millet's shoulder, and a voice asks them to wait. Alfred is startled by the sudden appearance. He is shocked because he didn't feel a presence. He concludes that this person is far from ordinary. Millet asks the stranger if they need something. The traveler explains that they are a little lost. The young traveler asks if they know the way to Merg village. A subtle smirk appears on the traveler's face. Sensing something is wrong, Femme lets out a low growl. The story flashes back to the legendary heroes' party, a group of 4 S-class adventurers renowned for defeating the Demon King. The party included Alfred, the veteran wizard. Alongside him was Luca, the wise warrior. And completing the trio shown was Yulina, the formidable healer. The final member of the party is revealed to be Cruz, the hero, a genius blessed by the Holy Spirit. Back in the present, Alfred is shocked to see his former comrade and wonders what he is doing in this remote location. Wary of his identity being discovered, Alfred resolves to make Cruz leave, even if it means using force, and decides to alter his voice. He worries it would be troublesome if people from the royal capital discovered his whereabouts. Cruz seems to sense something is amiss and asks if something is wrong, but Alfred quickly dismisses his concern. Cruz remarks that he feels like they have met before, but Alfred denies it. Alfred panics internally, realizing that Cruz is suspicious of him. He frantically wonders how he can mislead Cruz. Suddenly, an idea strikes him. Alfred's solution is to don a large, fluffy mustache, then he offers to guide Cruz to Merg village. An unsuspecting Cruz gratefully accepts the offer, and Alfred is relieved that the disguise seems to have worked. As they walk, Millet addresses Alfred by a shortened version of his name. He quickly corrects her, introducing himself to Cruz as Ral. He then introduces Millet by name, catching her completely off guard. With the new identities established, Alfred silently thanks Millet for playing along. He explains to Cruz that he is riding Femme because of a supposed leg injury. Millet introduces herself as being from Merg village, and Cruz thanks them for their kindness. Cruz formally introduces himself as Cruz Conradin and reveals his mission to slay the undead dragons that have infested the area, which surprises Millet. The undead dragons, Cruz explains, were the creation of a dark mage, likely a remnant of the demon lord's army. The mention of a dark mage startles Alfred. However, Cruz cheerfully informs them that the threat is already neutralized. He proudly states that he was the one who discovered their base in the western mountains. Cruz explains that the undead dragons were commanded to attack the royal capital, which is why mages were sent to intercept them. Alfred deduces that the most direct route would pass right through Femme's forest and Merg village. Cruz confirms this, stating his purpose is to protect the village. Internally, Alfred worries that the threat is not truly gone, despite his own efforts as the village guard in dealing with the dragons. Meanwhile, Millet praises Cruz for being so strong for his age. A flattered Cruz credits his training. The group continues on their way, the mood light and cheerful. But as they arrive at Alfred's home, he is met with a horrifying sight. His house has been completely destroyed. Arriving in the village, a villager informs Alfred that a stranger is attacking. Alfred realizes with dread that Vivi is trying to protect him. He sees Vivi standing defensively against a woman with long pigtails, another of his former comrades. Cruz recognizes the warrior as Luca. A tense standoff ensues between a furious Vivi and Luca, and Alfred realizes the situation has escalated dangerously. Alfred removes his mustache, revealing his face to Luca. Luca furiously tells him off. Vivi apologizes, explaining that she tried to stop Luca but could not, as Alfred wonders if Vivi burned down his house. He then asks if she and the hero arrived together. Attempting to calm the situation, Alfred apologizes and vouches for Vivi, but Luca is unmoved. Luca angrily accuses Vivi of trying to create a giant undead bull. Alfred, still in his disguise, wearily corrects her, stating it was merely a skeleton. Vivi retorts furiously, scolding the stranger for not knowing the difference between skeletons and undead. Alfred realizes why Vivi was so desperate. She had resurrected a creature named Morphe as a skeleton soldier to guard the warehouse. Luca remains resolute, declaring that she did the right thing by destroying the magic circle because the creature was a monster. Vivi explodes with rage, demanding that Luca take back her words and not call Morphe a monster. Alfred intervenes, explaining that controlling the dead is not an unknown practice, pointing out that some cities use dragon and human skeletons in their armies. Alfred explains that a skeleton's soul is temporarily connected to its master. He suggests that this allows them to be partners with humans. Luca seems to consider his point, though she is still annoyed. Vivi is moved by his defense, tearfully agreeing that she isn't bad. The crowd begins to murmur, siding with Vivi and calling Luca a girl with a bad temper. A flustered Luca looks on. She calls out to Cruz, asking what is going on. Femme remarks that Luca was the one who got separated from them. Luca points at Vivi, identifying her as the fifth of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army, and declaring that they must kill her. Alfred is completely shocked by the accusation. Luca doubles down, claiming Vivi is a famous member of the Demon King's army. She wildly concludes that Vivi is planning to invade the imperial capital with a giant bull. Cruz calmly considers Luca's theory, and concludes that if it is true, they'll have to deal with the situation, which sends Alfred into a silent panic. With their minds made up, Luca and Cruz stand together, resolute and prepared for a fight. Alfred assesses the overwhelming power of his former comrades, knowing he cannot match the strength of Luca, the warrior and strategist. On top of that, he has to contend with Cruz, the hero chosen by the gods. Realizing they will lose if a fight breaks out, he decides to intervene. He tells a frantic Vivy that this is crazy. Alfred tells her that he will handle the talking, stepping forward to de-escalate the situation. Before Alfred can say a word, the village children rush forward to defend Vivy, shouting that she is not a bad person. Vivy is moved to tears by their support, thanking them. Alfred is stunned by the sudden intervention. Cruz and Luca are also taken aback. Cruz is particularly flustered by the children's actions. Seeing his reaction, Luca tells him to stand down and trust the children's judgment. Luca tries to reason with Cruz. Alfred recognizes that the hero is this kind of person. He knows that Cruz has a weakness for children. His carefree nature often leads others to underestimate him. Resigned, Luca accepts that they have little choice but to stand down for now. Luca offers a sincere apology, but asks that they keep the bull skeletons contained. She then turns her attention to Alfred, addressing him as the mage with a fake mustache and summoning him over, and a nervous Alfred complies. As Alfred and Luca approach a small house, she asks him what he might need. Suddenly, Luca slams her hand against the wall next to his head, startling him. She leans in close, asking if he's trying to make a fool of her, to which a nervous Alfred quickly apologizes. With his fake mustache now off, Alfred asks Luca when she realized it was him. She explains that she knew ever since Cruz drew his sword, while Alfred reflects that he surprisingly hadn't been discovered. Luca exclaims that of course they would not be fooled, as even his voice was different. He then changes the subject, asking how her knee is. Luca happily reports that it's doing great because of a therapeutic onsen in the village, and Alfred is glad to hear it. Alfred thanks Luca, asking if she had been worried about him. Flustered and blushing, Luca loudly denies that she was concerned. Alfred then inquires about the royal capital and apologizes for his abrupt departure, but Luca retorts by asking how much trouble he thinks he has caused. After a moment, Luca says that she does not mind. She explains that she accepted a secret request from the Adventurers Guild. Luca reveals she is now the head manager of the royal capital, which allows her flexibility. Alfred is shocked to hear about her significant promotion. He understands now that no one pursued him because Luca was assisting him, and feels he owes her another thanks. Alfred deduces that Luca knew he was in the village, though she claims she did not come specifically to see him. He correctly guesses her mission involves the dragon. Luca confirms this, and adds she is also there to finish off remnants of the Demon King's army. She suddenly becomes alarmed, demanding to know how he learned confidential information. Alfred reveals he asked Cruz, leading an exasperated Luca to call the hero an idiot she'll have to scold later. Luca assesses the threat of the undead dragon and its minions, thinking it looks troublesome, and considers asking for help, but Alfred tells her it is already handled. Luca exasperatedly realizes she came for no reason, and Alfred agrees. He kicks a pile of fangs towards her, and she identifies one as belonging to a lesser dragon. She notes there are about 20 of them in the pile. Luca asks if it was a tough fight, but Alfred explains that Vivi and Femme helped him. Cruz appears at the window, asking Luca if she will be much longer. He enters and is amazed to see that the monsters have already been defeated. Alfred reveals his true identity to a stunned Cruz. Cruz is shocked to realize the old man was Alsan, and Luca comments on his gullibility. Cruz excitedly asks why Alsan is here. He notes that Alfred always moves from place to place, as Alfred begins to explain. Alfred explains he is in the village to recover, prompting Cruz to ask Luca why she lied. Luca explains that telling Cruz the truth would have made him want to come immediately, which he admits is true. An excited Cruz suggests that he should move to Merg village too. Cruz declares his wish to train under Alsan, but Alfred reminds him he's still recovering. Luca grabs Cruz and yells that many people would be troubled if the hero abandoned his work. Alfred agrees that it would cause a scene and invites Cruz to visit anytime instead. Cruz reluctantly agrees to abide by Alsan's decision. Alfred then invites both of them to stay for the night. He suddenly stops, having remembered something important. He forgot his house was burned down, which Cruz points out while looking at the ruins. Cruz suggests they all camp together, an idea Luca immediately rejects. Watching from afar, Millet and the others observe the trio and comment that the village will become livelier. A long-haired woman bows deeply, apologizing to the villagers for the commotion she caused. Alfred steps forward to mediate, introducing her and her companion as old friends of his. He vouches for them, saying they are reliable people who truly regret their actions, and asks the villagers for their forgiveness. Alfred explains to the villagers that he intervened because he saw a massive magic circle and feared the worst. The mayor encourages the woman, Luca, to raise her head. The mayor warmly declares that any friend of Al's is welcome in Mulg village. Relieved, she thanks them. A young man celebrates that Luca has been forgiven. He then confronts Alfred, insisting he should apologize as well for drawing his sword. Alfred explains to the mayor that he kept their identities secret to avoid making the villagers nervous, which would have prevented his friends from enjoying their visit. The mayor asks Alfred about his plans for the night. Alfred considers putting everyone up in the storehouse since his cabin is gone, but the mayor objects. Hearing this, Millet graciously offers her home for them to stay in until Alfred's cabin is rebuilt. Millet enthusiastically agrees, saying she'd love to have lively visitors. Alfred gratefully accepts her offer. A younger elf girl seems particularly excited about the arrangement. The young elf girl, Colette, exclaims her excitement about having a sleepover at her house as the group walks toward it. Millet welcomes them inside, telling Alfred to make himself at home. Inside, Colette happily plays with Femme. Alfred asks about the healer and is told that Urina has the mumps. She contracted it while treating others during an epidemic in the royal capital. As Millet serves drinks, Alfred asks her to pass along his well wishes for a speedy recovery. Millet comments on how Alfred's disguise had fooled them. The group shares a laugh around the table. Alfred calls out to Vivy. Noticing her standing alone in the kitchen, he asks if she plans to join them. Vivy glares, stating that the swordsman interfered with Mufi's resurrection. She then apologizes, admitting she was the one who burned down Alfred's cabin. Alfred reassures her, explaining that he was the one who encouraged her to use her magic and invites her to sit down. The swordsman apologizes, admitting she can't distinguish between zombie and skeleton magic circles. Alfred tells her it's a normal reaction to try and stop an Elite Four member from creating an undead. The hero tries to comfort her, pointing out that it's incredible for a swordsman to read magic circles at all. Alfred then states there's something he wants to confirm. Alfred asks if Vivy was actually one of the Elite Four, shocking his companions that he didn't know. Vivy complains that she's told him countless times, while the swordsman asks if he forgot they fought her before. The hero admits he can't remember either. The swordsman begins to recall a memory. In a flashback, the group recalls taking a small fortress in the Demon King's territory where they first encountered Vivy. Alfred asks why she was there, and she explains she was enriching the soil and livestock. She explains that the Demon King's territory is nearly barren land. Millet muses that the Demon King's army likely invaded human lands to steal food, and that the war might have been much harder if Vivy had succeeded. Vivy proudly insists her defeat was just a matter of bad luck, while Colette is simply impressed by the power of the Elite Four. Vivy proudly acknowledges her important role. Her train of thought is interrupted by a fragrant smell. Millet announces that the food is ready. She presents a large stack of pancakes with syrup being poured over them. Millet serves the afternoon snack, and everyone eagerly begins to eat. The hero Cruz happily enjoys the pancakes. Millet asks Cruz why he was wandering alone in the forest. He explains that he was pursuing a monster but lost track of Luca. Cruz reveals that he noticed signs of a hydra, which startles Luca. The news makes Alfred serious. Vivy asks if hydras are bad news, and Alfred confirms they are. Hydras are described as formidable, multi-headed monsters that spit deadly poison and are as strong as dragons. Luca is skeptical, stating that she also searched the area and found no trace of a hydra. Cruz, however, is certain of what he saw. Alfred considers that while Cruz can be absent-minded, his intuition in these situations is usually correct. Cruz apologizes for the trouble, but Alfred reassures him, promising to take care of the hydra if he finds it. Millet gets an idea and asks if everyone would like to go to a hot spring. The group is excited by the suggestion, and Millet offers to lead the way. As the others prepare to leave for the hot spring, Alfred tells them to take their time. He says that he and Femme will go later. Cruz is excited at the prospect of bathing with Alfred again after so long, but Alfred says he's staying home. Luca questions his decision, warning him that he'll get stinky. Millet, blushing, asks Alfred if he's bathed with crews before. A flustered Alfred explains that as adventurers, they sometimes had to bathe together in rivers out of necessity. Alfred tries to defend himself by saying it's normal for adventurers, but Vivi and Millet whisper that adventurers are shameless. Luca steps between Alfred and Cruz, declaring that mixed bathing is not acceptable. Despite this, Cruz tries to convince Colette that bathing with everyone would be more fun. Defeated, Alfred waves them off, saying he'll see them later. Alfred comments to Femme that the bath was great, and she happily shakes herself dry in agreement. As Alfred and Femme walk back, he notices the full moon. They arrive back at the house. Millet welcomes him back, letting him know that dinner will be ready soon. Inside, the rest of the group warmly welcomes Alfred back. They are in the middle of a card game and invite him to play with them. Alfred smiles, happy to see them enjoying themselves. The group spends a lively evening eating and playing games together. As the night winds down, Alfred walks upstairs. He carries a yawning Colette to bed. Millet announces that the beds are ready, but there are only 2. Colette immediately claims a spot with Femme. Millet suggests she and Colette sleep on the floor so the guests can use the beds, but Alfred's group protests. Cruz suggests to Alfred that they can sleep on the floor. Alfred hesitates for a moment but then agrees. Cruz is delighted, commenting that it has been a long time since they slept together like this. Alfred fondly recalls their adventuring days, remarking that a wooden floor is a luxury by comparison. Seeing them, Luca decides to join in. Vivi follows suit, exclaiming that it looks like fun. Millet tells Femme not to join the growing pile on the floor. Watching her guests all huddled on the floor, Millet sighs that the beds she prepared are going unused. Taking charge as the host, she decides on a new arrangement. It's decided that she will sleep in one bed with Colette and Femme, while everyone else will take the other bed. Alfred asks if it will be a tight fit for the 3 of them, but Millet reassures him that it's fine. As they say goodnight, Vivi teases Millet, accusing her of planning to sneak into Alfred's bed later, which she denies. Colette is happy to be sleeping with Femme. Cruz and Alfred wish each other good night. As the others fall asleep, Alfred lies awake, his expression thoughtful. Alfred thinks about the Hydra, realizing the village is in danger. He silently resolves to protect it. Unseen by the villagers, a monstrous creature stalks through the nearby woods under the night sky.